Yo, baby walk. Welcome. Welcome. Come on in, everybody. Come on in. Let's get straight into it, eh? Let's get straight into it. How is everyone doing? Shanna, hello. Welcome. Salam, Ruff. Salam. Hey, Matt. Hello. Yes. Yeah, I know. Long time, Matt. Stalin's Fork. Hello. Welcome. Come on in, everybody. Come on in. Right, today, I think we'll get straight into it. Oh, wub. Damn. I got you on when I'm sleeping. Nice. Evening, Mia. How's everybody doing? Hey, Rum. All right. Let's go straight into it. Straight into today's news. We're going to start off with Israel bombing Lebanon and Gaza, and then we're going to move on to what's happening with Iran. So let's get into it, folks. Yeah, I know, Ruff. It's been ages. Hey, Dragonfly. So Israel has attacked Lebanon. So Donny Boy came out and said there's going to be a peace deal, and Israel attacked Lebanon. It's insane. King Haile Selassie. Thank you. Welcome. Yeah, so Lebanon's currently being bombed. I'm good, thank you. How are you? Lebanon's currently being bombed by Israel, and they have... Can you self-promote? Yeah, of course you can. Of course you can. Go for it, man. And there's another thing here. They bombed Gaza as well. They've bombed Gaza too. 2 killed in Israeli strike on Gaza. So there's definitely an uptick in the bombings because I think Donny Boy is getting closer to a deal. I don't know how real the deal is, so we'll talk about it. That deal is actually quite an important bit of all of this, obviously. We've got a couple of bits of analysis here. We'll start with Al Jazeera, and then we'll go into a couple more.
Begin with a push for peace between the US and Iran as both sides offer different opinions on when an initial deal will be signed. US President Donald Trump and mediators from Pakistan say that an agreement is scheduled to be signed on Sunday.
It's a memorandum, yeah.
But Iran's foreign ministry says that it won't be Sunday, and an exact date has yet to be set. Donald Trump says that when there is an agreement, the Strait of...
Guys, go follow Matt on TikTok. Matt shares a lot of content on TikTok. Go follow his account. Yeah, Matt finds all the important stuff. Get behind Matt.
Hormuz, which has been a major point of contention in negotiations, will open immediately. The president also says that the U.S. won't release Iran's frozen funds, estimated to be worth billions of dollars, as part of the deal. The initial agreement, called a Memorandum of Understanding, would extend the current ceasefire for a further 60 days, allowing more time for the major sticking points like Iran's nuclear program to be negotiated. Al Jazeera's Al-Miqdad Al-Ruhayd is live for us in the Iranian capital.
It was so weird this morning. Woke up and then what do I see? I see Donny Boy going, "Oh, we're gonna be signing the deal tomorrow, signing the memorandum of understanding, the MOU tomorrow." I just don't know what he's doing, eh? I just don't know what he's doing. Here's his Truth Social. Let's go through his Truth Social. Yeah. It starts off with crapping on Obama. Barack Hussein Obama's deal with Iran, the JCPOA, was an easy, beautiful, smooth road to a nuclear weapon, which Iran would have had 6 years ago and would have used long before now. My agreement with Iran is the exact opposite. A wall to no nuclear weapon. In fact, they no longer want a nuclear weapon, nor will they have one, either through purchase, development, or any other form of procurement. The deal is scheduled to get signed tomorrow, and immediately after it is signed, the Strait of Hormuz is open to all. Our relationship with Iran is a much different and better one than previous administrations have had. Unlike Obama's hundreds of billions of dollars in payment to them, including $1.7 billion in green, cold cash, no money will exchange hands. At the appropriate time, when all is calm, we will go in and get the nuclear dust buried deep under the powerful sunken granite mountains, thanks to our beautiful B-2 bombers and their brilliant pilots, and downblend and destroy it, whether in Iran or the United States. We look forward to working with Iran and the entire Middle East long into the future. Hopefully, this process will all work out quickly, easily, and smoothly. If it doesn't, we have the ultimate alternative, hopefully never to be used again. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Yeah, I think he's just losing his mind like on a daily basis, you know? Hey, Winky, welcome. It is insane that he's saying it. Iran has obviously said that's full of shit. Let's listen.
Tehran. Actually, it's Mohammed Val. And Al Jazeera's White House correspondent Kimberly Halkett is in Washington. Kimberly, let's begin with you first. Talk us through what else Trump had to say in that statement and how he's trying to frame the deal.
Blue Room, hello.
U.S. President Donald Trump in his latest Truth Social post on Sunday insisting that this agreement, the memorandum of understanding that kicks off the 60-day period in order to nail down a nuclear agreement to limit Iran's nuclear program, that this is going to take place on Sunday. And that has been backed up by the Pakistani Ministry of Foreign Affairs that has also said this will take place Sunday and will be a virtual signing ceremony. So, in other words, the signing will take place electronically. Now, we know that Iran has given a different timeline. Still, the U.S. president insisting that this is moving ahead. Now, he's also framing this memorandum of understanding as being a major diplomatic victory, saying that this will ensure that Iran never has a nuclear weapon. In fact, he calls it a wall to prevent that from occurring, and also suggests that U.S. president, or rather that Iran is not interested in pursuing nuclear weapons moving further. Now, in addition, the U.S. president also taking a jab at Barack Obama, the one who, the U.S. president who, of course, put in place the 2015 JCPOA to limit Iran's nuclear program, something Donald Trump tore up. He's under an enormous amount of domestic pressure to ensure that any agreement that he is able to achieve is better.
It's wild if someone watches my TikTok back to May 1st. They can go from uninformed to above average informed on Palestine. Nice. So there we are. Hey, Seven Son. Kia ora. Walaikum assalam. Kia ora, everybody. Kia ora, kia ora.
Better than the previous one, or there's going to be blowback for Republicans. We also know that in terms of the memorandum of understanding, the U.S. president underscoring another political problem that he has had. He has insisted that this will open up the Strait of Hormuz immediately, something that was created in terms of a problem as a result of the United States-Israeli strikes on Iran, something that wasn't an issue prior to the JCPOA being torn up. And finally, we should point out that the U.S. president has always maintained a dual track of diplomacy along with military pressure. And this latest social media post suggests that is just the same. That dual track is continuing. The U.S. president saying that if Iran does not comply with this timetable, with this memorandum of understanding, he reserves the right for further military action, which he calls the ultimate alternative.
Our White House correspondent Kimberly Halkett reporting live from
the ultimate
Washington. Kimberly,
alternative.
many thanks. Let's bring in Mohammed Val then in Iran's capital, Tehran.
Big
How
Philly.
is this Trump statement and the way that he's framed this deal going down there, Mohammed?
Why am I sharing propaganda news? Why the fuck are you here? Like, go away if you don't like it.
Well, let's remember
What the fuck is this propaganda news for? Jesus Christ.
what the Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said yesterday in a long statement to the national TV here when he said that
I really hope
every
his
country
alternative
has
is
the
not
right to
wrong.
have its
Yeah.
own perspective on these matters of discord between the United States and Iran. So there is an indication there that the Iranians are also framing everything in their own way. But
The West is all propaganda. Bro, we're watching this and we're analyzing it. If you don't like it, find a channel that you like. What's the point of fucking coming here and commenting that and just why?
But when it comes to something that is already on paper and a ready document that is going to be signed, it is a bit strange that nobody knows what's in that. Not only nobody knows what's really on that document, but also the two sides are speaking in different voices and talking about different elements in this document. The Iranians, for instance, also are. I mean, it's ambiguous the way they express it.
Hey, Noisy, I was at a club last night. I was at a club last night for my younger sister's 40th. Used the bathroom, and in every cubicle, written on the walls, multiple times was F Israel, and other lovely remarks made my night. Oh, that's funny. I don't think Israel realizes how hated it is for what it has done. Yeah, I think this is an all-time fuck up for the Israeli brand. It's never going to recover. Never going to recover.
The Foreign Ministry's spokesperson today saying Iran will have to charge for services provided in the Strait of Hormuz. So that's something Iran has always been demanding and saying it is included in the Memorandum of Understanding. But the Americans are saying this Strait of Hormuz has to be opened immediately.
Welcome.
Without mentioning those conditions. And also he said the release of Iranian frozen funds is an integral part of the agreement.
90% of Iranians support Israel. 90% of Iranians in America who are Reza Pahlavi simps support Israel.
What agreement? Is he talking about this memorandum of understanding or talking about the agreement that is going to be discussed later? So that's also something that we see the two sides talking about differently. Also, he said the existence of foreign bases and military presence in the region must end. Is that something that is on this memorandum of understanding? We really don't know. So there is a...
Since when some Indian, you don't have to be here, buddy. You can go somewhere else.
Lot of questions and a lot of ambiguity until the last minute, and also the fact that the Americans are certain and confirming it is going to be signed tomorrow. The Iranians are saying there is no timing yet for that signing, until the last minute, nobody will know what's going on really with regards to this matter.
Al Jazeera's Mohammed Val reporting live from Tehran. Mohammed, many thanks indeed. Well, as part of negotiations, Iran has been pushing for the US to unfreeze its assets and lift years of widespread sanctions. Those measures have been imposed since 1979, when Iranian protesters seized the US embassy in Tehran. Since then, Washington has put more sanctions on Tehran for its support of armed groups and its nuclear program. Tehran wants to regain access to funds held in major global banks, estimated to be worth more than $100 billion. Iran's frozen assets are spread across several countries, including China, Iraq, and Luxembourg.
Yeah.
Those funds are mostly from oil sales affected by the sanctions. Joining us in the studio now is Tim Constantine, a writer for the Washington Times and host of the Capitol Hill Show. Good to see you again, Tim.
Good to see you.
President Trump says this deal could be signed within hours, sometime on Sunday. Iranian officials, as we were just hearing, are saying, hang on, there are some important issues that remain unresolved. Is the White House getting ahead of itself here?
I don't know if they're saying that issues are unresolved or whether the signing time and place or time and hour are unresolved. I look at the language that was used by Pakistan's prime minister, and what he said was the deal between U.S. and Iran is ready for signature. So that does not sound as though it's something that they're both considering. That doesn't sound as though it's still out for debate. That sounds pretty definite, pretty cut and dried. But I think if our biggest issue is whether it gets signed on Sunday or on Monday, but it gets signed, we're in pretty good shape.
We were talking just moments ago, about Iran's frozen assets, and there are reports that the draft terms might involve billions of dollars of frozen Iranian assets being released, although the president says, no way that's going to happen. Is that a pragmatic price, do you think, for ending the conflict, or a concession, if it turns out to be in the deal, that many Trump supporters will have difficulty accepting?
You mentioned the initial sanctions and the initial action against Iran started all the way back 47 years ago when U.S. embassy employees were taken hostage, and has carried through in various forms and various levels over the years. So there's a long history there. I think what President Trump was trying to do when he made his comment in
watching any of the World Cup? Nah, man. I usually just don't watch sports live or anything like that. Like, I'll catch a highlight here and there, but I don't usually watch any sports. Like today, I didn't watch the basketball, or I haven't watched a single live basketball game this year. Just highlights. Same with catching some of the Dodgers highlights as well. I don't know. I've never been like, with everything that's going on, and I'm like constantly in the news. It's very rare that I watch live sport.
His Truth Social post was, no money will exchange hands. And I think what he's trying to do is differentiate. The Obama administration packed up two C-130 cargo jets quite literally in the middle of the night with cash, with euros, to the tune of billions of dollars, sent those in, and no one in the United States, the public, was not aware this was even happening. When it came to light, it was by mistake.
We've seen this one, Matt. It's fucking shit.
I think he's trying to differentiate, and then by an amazing coincidence, 4 United States people that had been held by Iran.
Oh, by the way, Iran's playing New Zealand. I hope Iran wins like 10-0. Fuck New Zealand. I'm not supporting New Zealand, bro. Our government shit. I hope Iran wins like 20-0. I hope it's like a cricket score.
Released once that money arrived. So I think he's trying to differentiate that. And when we look at the assets, my best guess would be there's going to have to be an initial action here. For example, both sides open the Strait of Hormuz. Iran opens it to the rest of the world. The U.S. opens it to Iran. That's a good action on both parts. And then someone has to show a good faith effort. That might be a small release on the part of the United States of some of those assets.
All right, so if assets do begin to move, that doesn't amount to moving the goalposts on the president's part?
I don't think so. If we consider the reason, you can go back and it's actually documented each time that action was taken as to why the action was taken. It wasn't.
I think this World Cup is the biggest joke. Yeah, Zach, like these hydration breaks are such a joke, man. Another thing that capitalism stole from the working class and made it inaccessible. This is what capitalism does. Takes shit from the working class and then makes it inaccessible for everybody. Puts a paywall on.
Just a random whim of the president of the day. It was demarked as, here's the action we believe Iran has taken, whether that's related to terror or otherwise, and here's the penalty for that. And these will only be released if such and such happens. So I think you will be able to find an attorney that interprets such and such has happened if this goes well.
All right, so as we understand it, the Strait of Hormuz will open immediately as soon as any deal is signed. Some of the major issues, the nuclear issue, will be kicked further down the line.
Do we know that?
Well, we don't know that yet. We don't. But the administration insists that the agreement will ultimately dismantle Iran's path to any nuclear weapon, which of course Iran has said it never wanted to build in the first place. Given the remaining disputes over Iran's uranium stockpiles and inspections, how confident should Americans be that any safeguards built into this are actually enforceable?
I think that what we're likely to see, because none of us know all the details in this yet, there's been a lot of media speculation, but I think what we're likely to see is Iran agreeing in writing that they will not pursue. You remember, the president was worried about whether it was to build a nuclear weapon or build and or acquire a nuclear weapon. He wanted to make sure it was clear they just wouldn't.
Yeah, this whole thing of, they're trying to sell this thing as the nuclear weapon stuff, but the only reason these idiots like this guy are saying that it's about the nuclear weapons is because how much of a historic fuck up this is. This is such a historic fuck up. And they just don't want to talk about it. Hold up, guys. My dad's ringing. I'll just take this call.
Be one, no matter what the means. So I would not be surprised to see that as part of this initial agreement. And then the questions that will remain in the 60-day window we keep hearing about would be, how does the International Atomic Energy folks, how do they go ahead and verify what's there? If Iran has agreed to let the United States destroy that, does it happen in Iran? Is it taken away and it happens somewhere else? I think some of those details are probably the details that will happen. But I think the initial agreement will be one that satisfies the United States. They've agreed to it in writing as part of this. The question will be, what are the benchmarks and how do you measure each of those and how do you reward each of those? So do you lift certain sanctions if they have agreed to the IAEA coming in? Do you relieve certain frozen assets if they agree to a destruction time, place, or date? I think there can be a calendar where there's a give.
They're really pushing this line about nuclear weapons. Let's be real. They wanted a regime change. They wanted to establish Israel as the power, I guess the proxy power of the West in the Middle East. But what they've done is they've weakened Israel's position. They have strengthened Iran's position, and they are trying like hell. They're trying like hell to paint this as some sort of victory, but it's just not. It's not. It is a historic fuck up. The thing they might try and do, which I've been thinking about, is UAE and Saudi Arabia. The UAE and Saudi Arabia, they'll get UAE and Saudi Arabia to bypass the Strait of Hormuz with the pipelines, and then they may go back and try and bomb Iran again. Because then the risk isn't there. But then Iran will just go, no, like they'll just bomb all the pipelines too. I was thinking about it, and it's like, nah, I don't think it matters anymore. I think Iran has just got the checkmate here, folks. The checkmate. Iran played Trump's 5D chess. Can I please? Trump tried to play 5D chess, but he was actually like fucking playing Pong. He was playing Pong.
What's Pong?
Pong is the two things that go up on the screen, and the ball hits one, and then it bounces, and then you move the other ones. So he was playing Pong.
I bet you a lot of people had that question.
No. These are digital savvy people here, Amber. No one has the question of, guys, everybody.
Be honest.
Who knows?
Who knew about Pong?
You knew about Pong, right? Everybody? You knew about Pong.
Not ping pong. You knew, okay. Fine.
No, you just didn't know.
Be honest, people. I had a Pong.
I had a Pong.
P upside down.
Yeah, I think that might be Bong. I didn't know the name, but yeah, I used to play that when I was little. Yeah, there you go. It is like ping pong, though. It is like ping pong.
Thank you for being honest, people.
Yeah, you see? You said nobody knows. Everybody knows.
I didn't say nobody knew. I said most people would not know.
Okay, well, Trump is playing Pong, okay?
And take.
One more.
Stop mogging me, Amber. Stop mogging me.
What's mogging now?
You're trying to be better at this than me. What do you mean you are?
I got the twinkle twinkle.
My wife's mogging me.
Quick question. If a deal is signed tomorrow or the next few days, the Strait of Hormuz reopens.
Unbelievable.
What would Donald Trump want the American public to judge him on here?
I sit here every day, 4 hours a day, and then spend all this time trying to understand the world. Amber comes on for 5 minutes and thinks she's mogging me. And she mogged me. Not thinks. She did mog me. Hey, studios.
Avoiding a wider war, securing tougher terms than any previous U.S. administration, or with the Strait of Hormuz being open, markets getting back to some sort of normality.
I think all of those things are good byproducts, but what he has said from day one is his number one priority is Iran not having a nuclear weapon. And if he can point to where that is an absolute or is measurable and enforceable, then he can claim a victory. And I think the United States public will be willing to accept that.
Tim, it's always great to talk to you.
Great to see you.
Many thanks indeed for being with us. Tim.
This is a historic failure, everybody. Historic failure. Merca just failed. Okay? It tried to do the old without consent. It tried to do what the West is very good at. Having no consent. And here we are. They finally got stopped. Finally. Let's listen to this cadaver.
Let's bring you more on that breaking news now. U.S. President Donald Trump says a deal with Iran is scheduled to be signed tomorrow, and the Strait of Hormuz will be opened immediately afterwards.
Hey, Salika.
Let's bring in our security and defense analyst, Professor Michael Clark. Michael, that is the exact phrasing that the president's used. The deal is scheduled to get signed tomorrow. He certainly seems very confident. Are you as confident that this will all go as smoothly as the president seems to imply it will?
I'm good, thank you, Salika. No, I hope you're well.
First, it's not a deal. It's an exchange of memoranda, 2 MOUs that are exchanged, which is a way of saying we'll carry on talking for 60 days in a ceasefire. So it's better than nothing, but it's not a peace deal. It's a series of modalities to arrive at a peace deal. And secondly, it would be unusual to me if the Iranians signed it tomorrow, because why would they play to President Trump's agenda? They want to humiliate him, and it would suit them to embarrass him.
Michael Clark live from the crypt. He's just been animated again.
And say, well, maybe we'll sign it next week when we're really happy with it. Remember that when the hostage crisis was on under Jimmy Carter's presidency in 1979, eventually they negotiated the release of the hostages, but they were not released until the hour after Jimmy Carter.
No, we're not going to do this, guys. We're not going to do this. Life is very unpredictable. I've lost a couple of my friends to heart attacks in their late 30s. You just don't know. You just don't know. We can't make fun. We can't make fun of the aged anymore. We can make fun of him, but because his takes are absolute dog shit, not because of his age. Okay? He's got dog shit takes. Let's call that out. But let's not make fun of his age.
Carter had handed over power to Ronald Reagan. They humiliated him by hanging on until the inauguration ceremony was an hour in, and Ronald Reagan was then the president, and then the hostages were released. They've got a very acute sense of how to humiliate the United States, and they believe that humiliation is appropriate because they think that they are in the driving seat as far as these negotiations go. So we don't know. Everything's unpredictable with Donald Trump and with this war. But personally, I'd be a bit surprised if they sign tomorrow. I think they'll hang on in order to humiliate him.
Okay, so I get the point about them possibly not signing tomorrow, which is the time frame that Donald Trump has outlined. But what about the memorandum of understanding in general? Do you think that some kind of breakthrough will happen, if not tomorrow, in the coming days? I mean, that's what the...
No parent should see their child. No parent should bury their child. No way.
Pakistani Prime Minister seems to think.
Yes.
Aloha.
They seem to have arrived at the point where they say, we will discuss the things we need to discuss, which is the Strait of Hormuz, what happens to the enriched uranium, the whole process of nuclear issues, and then unfreezing assets, the Iranian assets that are frozen, releasing some sanctions, and then most important of all, a ceasefire in Lebanon. So there's at least 6 things which they have to discuss. And the key issue will be the sequencing. I mean, what do the Iranians have to do to get sanctions relief? What do they have to do to get the assets unfrozen? What's the sequencing for opening the Strait of Hormuz, given that if there's any delay in these processes...
Mogging is a compliment. It means that you are better than me. You're making me look bad. I was complimenting you.
They could close the Strait of Hormuz again. So I suspect it will be a very odd 60 days. It won't go smoothly. These things never do. And that says nothing about ballistic missiles, which is what this was always supposed to be about. Nothing about the proxies, all the other areas, the other groups in the Middle East that the Iranians fund and direct or inspire. Nothing about regime change, of course, which is not going to happen. So of the 6 issues that it will deal with, there's an awful long way to go. And ultimately, I mean, the United States is trying to...
Hey, by the way, guys, just before we carry on, one of our community members have had their family members taken by ICE. I just wanted to bring this up. She is in our Discord group. I wanted to just play this. Her name is Faye Marie. I'll be putting some money into her PayPal. Any amount, guys, will help. This is what we're about, community-wise. We help each other out. I try and help out whenever I have any sort of funds available. We try and help out people in Gaza as much as we can. You didn't hear what she said? Okay, wait. Let me just play that. So this is her... So this is her PayPal. I don't know if I can show this on TikTok. This is her PayPal, but I will share it. I will share it in the community as well. If you guys can help. Faye has been in this community for a while. So we're just like trying to do what we can, and the communities obviously come together. I'll post it in fundraising if it maybe I don't know, where should I post it? Yeah, I'll post it in fundraising. Guys, we try and help the community any way we can. So please, if you can, I'll put some cash in as well. And everyone, please help Faye. Yeah, they've taken her husband and they have a son together and she doesn't know what to do. Kia ora, Camper. She has no idea what to do. It's actually quite sick. But yeah, I mean, if you can help.
Something here out of a losing position. I mean, if I'll stick my neck out now and I say, I think militarily, the United States lost this war.
Does she know where he is? That's honestly, I've got Scary Poppins, who's a mod on this channel. She's been messaging me about it, and I've just been waiting for updates. She's freaking out, obviously, but yeah.
On the 8th of April, when they had the ceasefire, because Donald Trump, that was the night, if you remember, when he said that tonight a civilization will come to an end. And I think both the White House and Tehran were kind of frightened by the position that they got themselves into. They frightened themselves by where they were that night.
Let me send you the thing,
Rudolph. The moment when the Americans decided, look, there's nothing else we can do with military power. Our military power is not going to coerce the Iranians into doing what we want them to do, even on the nuclear issue, let alone all the other things. And I think that marked the loss of this war, because after that, the Americans were never going to get out of it what they wanted.
If we don't have PayPal, no, don't. If you're going to send it to her, like, let's just figure it out a different way. Don't send TikTok gifts to me. Don't send TikTok gifts to me if you want it to go to her, because TikTok taxes. So if you want it to go to her, like, let's just figure out a new way. Let's figure out a different way. But guys, if you're in this community, if you're in the Discord, etc., look, we try and do whatever we can to help. We're just I have what I make from all of these lives and things like that. So every month we have a mod fund which we donate mostly to Palestinians in Gaza. But we have over 1,000 people in our community. So if you are going through it and you need some help from the community for things like this, like this is an absurd situation where this person's husband has been taken by ICE and she's on unpaid leave too. She has children. So, you know, if you are going through things like this, just let the community know. Let the community know. We're here to help. We will do whatever we can. We're not wealthy people, but we can definitely help.
Wanted to politically, and since the 8th of April, all the noise and the discussions and all the back and forth, Trump statements, we're going to have peace, no, we're not going to have peace, we're going to go back to war. Every Friday it's a peaceful statement, every Monday it's a warlike statement because he's trying to influence the markets. All of that is the noise around the Americans trying to bolster what is effectively a weak political position. Because although the country of Iran desperately needs peace, the Iranians, all 90 million of them, they desperately need peace. But the people in power don't. The IRGC, who are now in power, the hardliners, they're all very well off personally. They've all got their bolt holes to go to when things collapse, if they collapse at some time in the future, as I suspect that they will. And so they don't need peace as much as the population of Iran needs peace. And it's a deeply, deeply corrupt organization. It's an organization which cares nothing.
Fuck up, bro. What are you saying, you dipshit? Hey, this is what pisses me off, everybody. A white man talking about Iran as corrupt is the most stupid fucking thing. He should shut his mouth.
for Iranian people, despite what they say. So they're under no real pressure to give in. Donald Trump is under much more pressure to get a deal of some sort, and he'll have to try to sell it to the American.
You know what he should do?
He should kiss my ass.
The public as being somehow better than the Obama deal of 2015, which he withdrew from.
Yeah, it's interesting how he started that statement on Truth Social, mentioning the JCPOA, Obama's deal. So, look, Michael, obviously you paint a picture that doesn't leave a lot of hope when it comes to a long-lasting peace between Iran and the United States. But it's really the Strait of Hormuz that has made this war have an impact on economies right around the world. So do you foresee not a long-lasting peace between the two warring parties, but some kind of opening of the Strait of Hormuz soon?
Yes, Barbara. I mean, I don't see a return to military activity particularly, but I see a grumbling diplomatic argument between Iran and the United States that will go on and will go on beyond the 60 days, and there may be occasional military operations on both sides. So I think we're not going to see a neat end to this. It will just drift on for a long time. The Strait of Hormuz, I'm sure, will open again, but it will never go back to the way it was, ever. Whatever they say about the Strait of Hormuz, it will not go back to the way it was, because the Iranians now know, and we now know, how easy it is for them to close it. It wasn't as easy for them to do this in the tanker war during the 1980s, but the modern technologies of cheap ballistic missiles, cheap drones, robotic boats, even midget robotic submarines, all of those things didn't exist in the 1980s, but they exist now. And operating from Qesem Island, from Bandar Abbas, the Iranians can close the strait at a moment's notice whenever they want to. And that's the new reality that won't change.
Our security and defense analyst, Professor Michael Clark. Michael, always good to talk to you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's it's kind of a weird. Hey, it's Safia. Wa alaikum assalam. Hopefully they'll stand up for Gaza too. Hold on, guys. Let me just put some money in Fate's account. There's a couple of docos I want to play tonight. I mean, it's Sunday night in Aotearoa, so a little bit easier. I don't want to take you guys into the next week with too much pain and suffering. There's a lot to cover still, but I want to give you guys do like a more informative one today in terms of a couple of points I want to raise. But we are going to go through some news around around migration. Sorry, my brain's just all over the show. Around migration, but please, just note today, I want to take it easy on us because every day is pretty shitty news. So we'll watch ABC's take on what Xi Jinping is up to. I also have an AJ documentary. Actually, we'll start with that. Okay, we'll start with the AJ documentary. Sorry, guys. I'm thinking about Faye a little bit. Just give me 1 second. Let me just bring this up. AJ Plus, I think. Oh no, it was Vox actually. Yes, here we go. We may have watched it, but I think a good one. This is called The Rise of Xi Jinping by Vox.
These are the 7 most powerful men in China. They represent the top leadership positions of the ruling party, and their identities are revealed every 5 years at a carefully choreographed political event called the National Congress.
China's Communist Party unveils its new leadership over the next 5 years.
The order of appearance is symbolic. The first person to emerge is the head of the party for the next 5 years. At the most recent event in October 2022, that person was Xi Jinping, China's president for the last 10 years, who walked out in the top spot a historic 3rd time after getting rid of China's presidential term limit that restricted all his predecessors to 2 terms. A signal that he may be planning to stay in power for life. The world hasn't seen a Chinese leader like this since Mao Zedong, the revolutionary founder of the People's Republic of China, whose ruthless dictatorship scarred the Chinese people for generations. Xi has been compared to Mao a lot, and he clearly draws from Mao's playbook. But there's something else that connects these two. When Xi was just a young boy, Mao ruined his life. Generations apart, their paths crossed unexpectedly, and a teenage Xi from an elite family in Beijing ended up in exile, condemned to hard labor in the countryside.
Yeah, I have heard that someone came in the chat a couple of days ago and said Xi grew up in the West or some shit. Bro, this guy was put into hard labor by Mao. What the fuck? I don't know what this person was on about, but this guy, Xi Jinping, was exiled.
50 years later, Xi is one of the most powerful political figures in the world and the only leader since Mao to have unchecked power over China.
Hey, cups of tea.
So how did he go from being banished in his country to taking complete control of it? Xi Jinping's connection to Mao formed long before Xi was even born. It goes back to when a bloody civil war was raging in China. A group of radical communist revolutionaries, including Mao, gained influence over large swaths of mainland China and controlled a communist military called the Red Army that fought the Nationalist Party ruling the Republic of China at the time. At this point, the communists were losing bad.
Hey, Mando, welcome. To be honest, like if this documentary was accurate, the question to have asked is, how did a young boy who was banished gain control of China and have Donald Trump swallow Xi's nuts?
The bulk of their army was pinned down here, in a communist-controlled region originally established by Mao,
Nadia.
now surrounded by nationalist forces. And they were running low on food. So the Red Army decided to launch a bold attack to break through the nationalist forces and evacuate the roughly 130,000 communist soldiers and civilians stuck here. On October 16th, 1934, they made their move.
Did I say hi, my close brush? Welcome. Hello. I feel like I missed you coming into the live. How are you, my close brush? How are you?
Move and attacked a weaker part of the enemy line. They broke through. And even though their numbers quickly dropped, with thousands dying and thousands more fleeing to the countryside, around 86,000 stuck together and pushed on. This was the beginning of a year-long historic retreat called the Long March, the journey to establish a new communist base far from the nationalist forces. Mao, who used to be a military leader, wasn't in charge at this time. He'd insisted on using guerrilla tactics, which had heavily influenced the Red Army earlier in the war, but that approach had fallen out of favor and he was demoted. The Long March changed that. After escaping the siege here, the Red Army continued to suffer relentless attacks by the pursuing Nationalist Army. The military leaders of the march had pushed for a more traditional wartime strategy of direct confrontation rather than Mao's guerrilla tactics. And the result was catastrophic for the Red Army. Less than half of the original escape group survived the first 3 months alone. So it was at this first stopping point where Communist Party leader Zhou Enlai handed military leadership back to Mao. And Mao picked an endpoint for the march. Here, 800 miles away in rural northern China. But they didn't go straight for it. Mao led the Red Army deep into the mountains where he predicted lighter resistance. And he was right. But the journey was still brutal.
I've seen Gatha a lot. How's Gatha doing, by the way? I haven't been to her lives. I should reach out to her.
It was 9 more months of non-stop marching and fighting along this several thousand-mile route before they ultimately arrived in northern China, where a guerrilla base led by a communist revolutionary named Shi Zhongshun offered Mao's army refuge, bringing the Long March to an end. That man was Xi Jinping's father. In the end, fewer than 8,000 of the original marchers survived. Even though thousands died on the Long March from starvation, fighting, and disease, Mao's leadership was credited with saving the Red Army from total annihilation, and he became the de facto head of the party as well as the military, entrusted with rebuilding the army to take on the nationalist forces for total control of China.
Wherever and however the Red troops move into battle, they spread the glory of Mao Zedong.
This is a good stopping point in the story to talk about how power in the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, works. Officially,
Hey,
the highest
Khadija.
level of authority is a group called the Central Committee and is responsible for all of the party's major policy decisions.
Hey,
Within the Central
Ravenardo.
Committee is a select group of officials called the Political Bureau or Politburo. In most communist parties, like that of the former Soviet Union, the Politburo represents the most powerful members of the party besides the General Secretary. But the Chinese Communist Party has a key distinction that makes it unique. It has one more, even smaller selection of top officials.
Aghada is incredible, man. Like a survivor. Just an incredible human.
Who ultimately had the final say, an elite class of Politburo members called the Politburo Standing Committee.
Exactly.
This
ABC.
group, which includes the General Secretary, holds supreme control over the Central Committee, dictates the will of the party, and is in full control of the Central Military Commission, which oversees China's defense. Mao's promotion
Really?
during the Long March landed him here, in the highest position of the military and the Politburo Standing Committee. Even though he was considered the de facto head of the party when the Long
Hey,
March ended
sustaining
in
a smile,
1935, he officially became head of the party in 1943. With both the party and the military under his control, Mao began to exploit the system to ensure he remained at the top for the rest of his life. At Mao's first National Congress as the
That's
official
right,
party
man.
leader in
Absolutely.
1945, the party introduced a resolution that brought his influence to a whole new level.
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
It unified the party around a single understanding of its history and declared Mao's political ideology, later called Mao Zedong Thought or Maoism, as the unquestioned guiding principle of the Chinese Communist Party. Basically, Mao's ideas or policy decisions could no longer be challenged by anyone. It was here he unveiled his equivalent at the time of the Politburo Standing Committee.
Do we have any like Maoists in the chat? Do we have any Maoists? Hey, Mimo.
The four other top party leaders, all long marchers deeply loyal to Mao, like Liu Shaoqi and Zhou Enlai, who'd go on to hold some of the most powerful positions in the future government. 4 years later, Mao declared final victory for the communists in the decades-long Chinese Civil War and established a new country.
Feel free to like just educate us on certain bits and pieces as you see. Just let us know if because this is quite going over stuff really quickly, right? If you see something that is inconsistent, or just let us know in chat if you can. Glad to see you too, sustaining a smile. Nice.
The People's Republic of China, or PRC.
Anais,
Mao
welcome.
Zedong, once a lowly party worker, now assumed the stature of the dominant figure in all of Eastern Asia.
But winning a revolution isn't the same as running a country.
Because now that you're running a country, there's all these other things you have to do, like deliver the mail and like build a dam and stuff like that. You can't possibly have the party do all these things.
Running a country isn't easy. Well, you should see how badly Donny Boy's fucking it up. I don't know if you've seen the UFC fucking thing, and they've had those motorbikes doing jumps at the White House. He has completely molested the White House. It's crazy.
So the party set up a government that would take the policy decisions made by the Politburo Standing Committee and figure out a way to make them a reality.
And so it evolved to a system where the party would make all the important decisions, and especially the Politburo Standing Committee. Then, as it is today, many of these decisions would go to the State Council. So the State Council is the highest decision-making body on the state side, led by the Premier of China.
The Premier of China, by the way, is almost always a member of the Politburo Standing Committee. One way Mao kept a tight grip on power over the years was by promoting those loyal to him to top positions in the party and government, whether they had government experience or not. For example, Zhou Enlai, the former party leader who helped Mao rise to power during the Long March, became China's first premier.
The advantage of that is that they could never challenge him. The disadvantage of that is they didn't know what they were doing, and so administration suffered, policy outcomes suffered.
Long March survivors often became party elites under Mao. Xi Jinping's father, for example, was appointed Secretary General of the State Council. And as the son of a Long Marcher, young Xi was given the informal title of princeling.
Whoa, Xi Jinping, princeling? God damn. The guy's got cred, eh? Xi Jinping.
Mao succeeded in never giving up his power during his lifetime. His unchecked policies resulted in massive famines and widespread persecution that cost between 40 and 80 million lives over a span.
Yeah, the Great Leap Forward, I think, was a massive fuck up. Like, the Great Leap Forward was, now when you look at it and you see what was actually, what the plan was, it's like, bro, what the fuck are you doing, you know? But then you'll never truly understand what his thinking was. Fuck, it's so stupid. The amount of people that killed, just horrible. The Great Leap Forward was, I don't know what others think, but I think that was terrible.
Span of decades, and culminated in the disastrous Cultural Revolution, a violent final attempt from Mao to consolidate his power and force loyalty to the practice of Maoism. The idea was to make himself and his ideas eternal, the way he viewed communist figureheads like Lenin and Marx before him. Anyone that didn't fall in line with Mao's ideology was publicly humiliated, impoverished, excluded from society, and in many cases, executed.
Yeah, the same problem with Stalin, you know, right? Like, they starved so many people to death. You can't... the one thing I will say is the West has been far worse than any of this. In terms of numbers, India, when you think about India in 40 years, between 1880 and 1920, I mean, the numbers go up and down, but you know, you're looking at 100 million, 165, up to 165 million have been said. Like, there are different amounts, different projections, but when you look at excess death, you know, it's 100 million, 65 million people on the higher end starved to death in India. And the Brits have the gall to speak about other mass starvations. Yeah, it didn't happen to Brits. That's what they'll say.
Either at the hands of the army or by a militant youth group obsessed with enforcing Maoism, the Red Guards.
Yeah, exactly.
Even those closest to the dictator weren't safe from his purges during the Cultural Revolution. High-level officials, including members of the Politburo Standing Committee and Long Marchers, were removed from their positions. Liu Shaoqi was denounced as a traitor and died while imprisoned under harsh conditions. Mao also removed the chief of staff of the army and replaced him with a Maoist, leaving no one left to oppose him in the military. Mao's handpicked successor, who always appeared loyally by his side in photos and propaganda posters, died under mysterious circumstances when his plane crashed as he was fleeing to the Soviet Union. Mao later denounced him as a traitor. He denounced Xi's father, too. This is a photo of Xi Sr. being restrained and publicly criticized by the Red Guards at the height of the Cultural Revolution. He would remain a prisoner in Beijing for 8 years following this. With his father purged, Xi Jinping, 15 at the time, was expelled from his elite school in Beijing and sent to work in the countryside.
He had to live in a cave and, do hard manual labor. His food was barely enough for, a growing young person. And Chairman Mao was responsible for all of it.
But then, Mao died. The Cultural Revolution ended. His successor was Deng Xiaoping, one of the Politburo Standing Committee members who was removed from power during the Cultural Revolution, who, just before Mao died, started making a promise to fellow exiled party veterans.
Deng Xiaoping signaled credibly to all the surviving Long Marchers that he wanted to rehabilitate people. So when Mao died, they all supported the rehabilitation of Deng. And as soon as Deng was rehabilitated, he went ahead and rehabilitated all these people.
With experienced leadership back in place, the party needed to figure out how to prevent something like this.
Guys, if you think this is bad, just wait for the next one where I show you Vox's take on the People's Republic of China and the Republic of China,
From ever happening again. In order to undo Mao's cult of personality, the party introduced a second historical resolution in 1981. It condemned periods of Mao's rule and emphasized a renewed commitment to collective leadership, vowing to oppose the consolidation of power around one person moving forward.
The successors to Mao didn't want a dictatorship, so they divided up these positions and put them in the hands of different people.
Like Mao, Deng kept tight control over the Central Military Commission as its chairman, and held a leadership position in the government, but was never head of state. He never held the highest position in the party either. Instead, he set up a new advisory commission and served as its chairman, which allowed him to influence the party's direction without positioning himself directly on top of it. This allowed a power-sharing structure while still making Deng the de facto leader of China until he stepped down in 1989, following the army's massacre of students protesting in Tiananmen Square.
A protester suddenly ran into the middle of the street and in front of the oncoming tanks.
Anger at Deng Xiaoping, the entire Chinese government, it had the real feeling of rebellion in the streets of Beijing.
Here we go, everybody. It's the recycled Tiananmen Square. We have to hear about it one more time. Are you ready for the 7,000th time in 2026?
People want to fight the military out of their city.
Deng and his ideology, which moved away from Maoism, set a precedent of sharing power. He opened up China and established economic ties with these countries, and was the first PRC leader to visit the U.S. in 1979.
Today we take another step in the historic normalization.
Yeah, it was horrible, obviously, Mima. It was horrible. But the West uses the Tiananmen Square massacre as the defining sort of massacre. You know, it's the massacre of massacres while they commit genocide in Gaza, you know? It's kind of it's trying to paint China as a morally just a morally deranged country, and then like America just bombs everybody. It's this is the one thing. Thank you for the bits. Why do I have so much hair? Like, it goes flat. This is not even that much. Nuking God. Welcome. Hiding knowledge. Yeah, this is the one thing the West uses as, China bad.
New follower detected.
This is the one thing China uses, the West uses as China bad. That's
Of relations which we have begun this year.
Deng's reforms became the foundation for decades of economic prosperity that led China to having the world's second largest economy over time and being on the verge of becoming the world's next superpower.
Communism is creating a consumer society.
It also reminds you that the standard of living in China is going up.
Here, capitalism rules.
One thing power sharing did lead to was a lot.
Yeah, that's exactly next to the moon. My thing is always be
Hype train
Holy
detected.
shit.
We are champions. Let's keep this momentum going. Let's go.
I need to change that hype train notification. I really need to change that hype train notification. Holy shit, it goes off. Thank you, Matt. Thank you. Welcome, Nuking God. Oh, good on you, Nuking God. So look, guys. The thing for me is, I don't think there is a just government in the world. None of them are just. My position is always have a healthy healthy criticism of every government. But while you do that, also understand the asymmetry of the world, how asymmetric the world is, i.e. power concentration in the West and the lack of, or the changing power dynamics of the moment. You got to keep those things in mind. It's not just, I'm pro this, I'm pro that. I don't think it's I don't like to play that game because ACAB's ACAB. Right? Like, all cops are bastards. They do horrible shit.
A lot of policy innovation and then some degree of decentralization. And both of these things helped China's economy enormously.
Which is why this period of economic growth and reform, stretching over roughly 30 years, is known as the Deng era. And whether he wanted to or not, Deng kept his word and never tried to consolidate absolute power around himself.
He did end up sharing power, and that set the stage for power sharing in the party until the rise of Xi Jinping.
So what was Xi doing all this time? When Mao died in 1976, Xi was back in Beijing studying communist philosophy. Even though the Chinese Communist Party had ruined Xi's family, he had joined it, just as the Cultural Revolution was winding down. But why?
Personally, he might begrudge Chairman Mao for doing all these terrible things to his family, but I think at this time he also recognized that in the system of the Chinese Communist Party, power is everything. Without power, you're nothing.
But in order to get that power, Xi did something unexpected. He left Beijing.
As his competitors were fiercely competing with each other in the 1980s.
Yeah, he went to the rural areas.
In the 1990s, he sort of got out of their way and went to the provinces.
He took positions in party leadership in rural, poor provinces all around China, where there were no other princelings to compete with. First in Hebei, a poor rural province outside of Beijing, where he easily reached the top spot as party secretary. Then in Fujian, a heavily militarized region where top members of the army were stationed. He moved up the ranks to party secretary here too, before becoming the governor of the province a few years later. After making powerful friends in the military, Xi went here, where he once again assumed the office of party secretary and grew his support on the civilian side. This strategy of moving around didn't just give Xi a leg up in areas where competition was slim, it also gave him credibility as a humble, hardworking party leader. And he cultivated a growing group of supporters who would come back into play years down the line.
The other framing that the West makes, right, is making Xi's whole identity communism. Like, okay, yes, there's party alignment, there's government alignment. He's a Chinese man whose country he's seen go through some horrible shit for a very long time at the hands of people outside the country. He's seen how China has been treated around the world. He's seen all of these things. And you can't just make his whole identity communist, like that's what the West does. It makes your whole identity like this one thing that the West hates. Nah, bro, this guy understood his people's struggle. This guy learned about his country's history. He learned about it, he would have learned about what the Japanese people did to China during World War II and before. The Opium Wars. All of these things weren't that old, right? Like when he was a kid and he would have been learning these things, that is part of his identity. That is part of his identity. Communism was a vehicle, but they often don't talk about like him being a Chinese man and what the West has done to China over time. Like they'll never ever fucking talk about it because it's easy to label you one label and then hate that label. right?
It was his last stop and his shortest one that ultimately got him back to Beijing. A brief stint in the top party spot in Shanghai in 2007, where he rehabilitated.
Nah, I understood what you said, Elijah. I was just adding on. I was just adding on to say they'll attack his communism, but they won't understand him, right? Like him as a person. When you label someone communist, it's easy to hate them. But his identity is a lot more than just communist, you know?
Rehabilitated the city's image following a high-level corruption scandal. Xi developed a reputation here as a prudent leader who towed the party line. Just 7 months later, he finally returned to Beijing, having been promoted to the all-powerful Politburo standing.
I actually met him when he came to Tacoma, Washington. He just seemed like a normal politician, if I'm being honest. Granted, that's based off like a 2 to 3 minute of observation. Can't really draw conclusions of that. Yeah. I think it's very hard, especially like personalities like Xi Jinping. It's very hard to understand them with what they project in public. Very hard.
Committee.
Basically, the people who were deciding on top leadership at the time, they wanted a princeling, but they didn't want a princeling who was too ambitious or too strong. So Xi Jinping, he was seen as less ambitious because he was willing to go to the countryside and work in lower level positions.
When Xi emerged at the 2007 National Congress and leadership unveiling, he was one of the 9 most powerful men in the country. It was at this moment that his strategic climb, over 17 long years in the countryside, paid off, big time. When the General Secretary stepped down in 2012, Xi emerged at the top spot in the party as China's leader. Now, the elite son of a former revolutionary, turned exiled peasant, turned party darling, was poised to seize control of everything.
Yeah, but exactly, Michael. Oh, sorry, Michaela. Is it Michaela? Am I calling you Michael? I'm so sorry. It's Michaela. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Michaela, I'm sorry. Oh, is it? Oh no, it is Michael. Oh my gosh. It is Michael. I got it right. Okay. What I was gonna say, fucking this chat app just makes all the names caps. It makes all the names caps, so like I can't tell. You stress out, noisy. Yeah, they do the same with Vietnam and Ho Chi Minh, and it like northern Vietnam, just a bunch of communists, just a bunch of communists, blah blah blah. These are Vietnamese people who had been through centuries of colonial violence, and they found communism as a tool to use. But fuck, man, just to like completely reduce all of these people down to like communism is crazy. They're more than that. Their identities are so important.
Like Mao, Xi Jinping believes that rallying around a single figure is crucial to the party's survival, rather than the collective leadership Deng's reforms had normalized. So pretty much as soon as Xi Jinping came to power, he started getting rid of people.
The news 4 top officials removed for taking bribes was announced on state TV.
Xi Jinping has just sacked his foreign minister, just sacked his defense minister. He sacked a whole lot of other people at the top of the military establishment.
The former security czar has not...
What is this documentary name? This is The Rise of Xi Jinping Explained by Vox.
Not been seen in public for more than a year. The investigation against Xi allows the Chinese president to remove those opposed to his reforms
He launched a major anti-corruption campaign as soon as he took power in late 2012, early 13, which led to the arrest of hundreds of senior level officials, as well as military officers.
These purges targeted Xi's rivals in the party, whose vacant positions he filled with his own supporters.
After this massive purge, Xi Jinping was in very tight control over both the party and also the Chinese military, thereby making him the most powerful leader of the Chinese Communist Party since the death of Mao.
That pattern continued in the second term, where he unveiled 5 new faces of the Politburo Standing Committee, 3 of them with close personal ties to Xi. In 2021, Xi pulled off one of his most dramatic acts yet to enforce his influence over the Chinese Communist Party. He introduced a third historic resolution that unified the party's ideology around one clear line of thinking: Xi Jinping thought.
Whoa! Has he got a book? Like Xi Jinping thought? Is that real? Is this just Western media making it up, or is that real?
Xi's personal political ideology would now be the core in the party's thinking, political stance, and action. Basically, Xi Jinping's ideas could no longer be challenged. And they weren't for many years. During Xi's first 10 years in power, the size of China's economy more than doubled. So did average individual income. So did military spending. Under his leadership, China's presence on the world stage has grown too, positioning the rising superpower to take on the role of an aggressor externally, reasserting claims over parts of the South China Sea, intimidating Taiwan and Tibet, and stripping democratic process in Hong Kong. Inside its own borders, strict internet censorship and surveillance are widespread. And oppression of Uyghurs, a mostly minority Muslim ethnic group, is marked by human rights abuses. But it wasn't until COVID that Xi saw the first real challenge to his authority.
Anger in China is growing.
Video showing protesters in Xinjiang fed up with China's zero COVID rules.
The boldest public challenge yet for leader Xi Jinping.
With these protests all around the country and the party's reputation in peril, Xi reversed the failed policy, but is now faced with a shaky economy and cracks in his unchecked authority. It was just weeks before the widespread protests at the 20th National Congress in 2022 that Xi walked out in the leading position a third time. He had already locked in the presidency for another 5 years and unveiled a Politburo Standing Committee completely packed with those loyal to him, after removing the final senior members of the party that had ties to his predecessor. Now, there is no one left in party or military leadership whose ideology differs from Xi.
I don't think anyone can push him out at this point. I think he will be the most powerful leader in China as long as he's alive and conscious.
Thanks so much for watching this episode of...
Okay, what is oh man, I'm getting his name wrong. Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era, commonly abbreviated outside China as Xi Jinping thought, or Xiism, is a political doctrine created during the General Secretaryship of Xi Jinping of the Chinese Communist Party that combines Chinese Marxism and national rejuvenation. In January 2013, Xi's speech at the CCP's 18th National Congress in 2012 were collectively termed General Secretary Xi Jinping's series of important speeches, followed by a campaign within the CCP to study Xi's speeches. These developed into Xi Jinping Thought, which was first officially mentioned at the CCP's 19th National Congress. In 2017, when it was incorporated into the CCP Constitution, in 2018, at the first session of the 13th National People's Congress, the preamble of the state constitution was amended to mention Xi Jinping Thought. According to the CCP, Xi Jinping Thought builds on and further enriches previous party ideologies and has also been called as has also been called as the Marxism of contemporary China and of the 21st century, and a new breakthrough in the cynicization of Marxism. The fuck is it? The cynicization of Marxism is a Chinese Communist Party ideological concept that proposes to adapt Marxism to China's national conditions, Chinese culture, and history. It is a component of the theoretical system of socialism with Chinese characteristics. It's the same old rehashed CIA rhetoric right off the script against everyone. Yeah, I agree. Guys, we're just learning, okay? We're learning. It is a component. I know people get quite opinionated about anything China related, about getting things exactly right. Just don't worry. I'm not like I'm not gargling Trump's distended scrotes, okay? I don't do that. I criticize all governments, but with a mind, with the context of asymmetry. It is a component of the theoretical system of socialism with Chinese characteristics and the development of Marxism-Leninism, Mao Zedong thought, Deng Xiaoping theory, and the three represents. Officially, the theory of three represents is a political doctrine that defines the role of the Chinese Communist Party in Chinese society. It legitimized the entry of private business owners and bourgeoisie elements into. Interesting, right? Okay, I'll just go back. The theory's main elements are summarized in the 10 affirmations. Oh! The 10 affirmations? Are these the 10 commandments? Whoa! Xi's 10 commandments? They changed commandments to affirmations? The 14 commitments. The 13 areas of achievements and 6 musts. AliExpress 10 Fuck, man. Oh, the 10 affirmations. Okay, hold on. Let's just look at the 10 affirmations. Oh, here we go. The 10 affirmations. During his speech to the 19th CCP Congress, Xi Jinping introduced the 8 affirmations. Wait, no, what? It's fucking 10 affirmations. Which later developed to the 10th affirmation, 10 affirmations, with the addition of the 7th and 10th point during the 6th plenum of the 19th Central Committee in 2021. The 10 affirmations are: affirm that the most essential feature of socialism with Chinese characteristics is the leadership of the Chinese Communist Party. The greatest advantage of the system of socialism with Chinese characteristics is the leadership of the Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese Communist Party is the highest political leadership force, and the entire party must strengthen its 4 consciousnesses, firm up its 4 confidences, and achieve 2 upholds. Wow. What the fuck are they doing? Oh my gosh, this is very complicated. Affirm that we must clearly uphold and develop socialism with Chinese characteristics. Our overall task is to realize socialist modernization and the greatest rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. On the basis of building a moderately prosperous society in all respects, we will take 2 steps to build a great modern socialist country that is prosperous, strong, democratic, culturally advanced, harmonious, and beautiful by the middle of this century, and promote the great rejuvenation of Chinese nation through Chinese-style modernization. It sounds good. That sounds good. Affirm that the principal contradiction facing Chinese society in the new era is the contradiction between the people's ever-growing needs for a... Hey, Old Hal Hooten, welcome. Ever-growing needs for a better life and unbalanced and inadequate development. We must adhere to the people-centered development philosophy, develop people's democracy throughout the entire process, and promote more significant and substantial progress in the all-round development of people and the common prosperity of all people. Affirm that the overall layout of the cause of socialism with Chinese characteristics is a five-pronged approach encompassing economic, political, cultural, social, and ecological progress, while the strategic layout consists of four comprehensive initiatives: building a modern socialist country in all respects, deepening reform in all respects, governing the country according to law in all respects, and strengthening party discipline in all respects. Yeah, these are definitely sounding like the 10 Commandments. Affirm that they're very prescriptive. Affirm that the overall goal of comprehensively deepening reform is to improve and develop the system of socialism with Chinese characteristics and to modernize the national governance system and governance capacity. Hey, Summer, welcome. Affirm that the overall goal of comprehensively advancing the rule of law is to build a socialist rule of law system with Chinese characteristics and a socialist rule of law state. Affirm that we must uphold and improve the basic socialist economic system, allow the Wow, sorry about that. That was like a yawn and trying to say a word. Allow the market to play a decisive role in resource allocation, better leverage the role of the government, grasp the new stage of development, implement the new development philosophy of innovation, coordination, green development, openness, and sharing, accelerate the construction of a new development pattern with the domestic cycle as the mainstay and the domestic and international cycles mutually reinforcing each other, promote high quality development and coordinate development and security. Number 7, you may never ally China to an orange fuck. Yep. Affirm that the party's goal for building a strong military in the new era is to build a people's army that obeys the party's command, is capable of winning battles, and has an excellent style of work, and to build the people's army into a world-class military. Affirm that China's major... That sounds like Kamala saying we're going to be a lethal fighting force. Affirm that China's... in, more words. Affirm that China's major country diplomacy with Chinese characteristics should serve national rejuvenation, promote human progress, advance the building of a new type of international relations, and promote the building of a community with a shared future of mankind. Affirm, number 10, affirm that the strategic policy of comprehensively and strictly governing the party puts forward the general requirements for party building in the new era, comprehensively promotes the party's political, ideological, organizational style and disciplinary building, integrates institutional building throughout, deepens the anti-corruption struggle, implements the political responsibility of governing the party, and leads the great social revolution with the great self-revolution. Yeah, I agree. I think what's happened here is a consequence of Western imperialism and white supremacy. This is, you can say, this is China reacting to a highly oppressive world. It's protecting itself from the West. The West is the great the great Satan. Is that how we want to say it? The West is really has created a world where the global South has to protect itself. the reactionary behavior is a symptom of what the West has done to the world. So you can't blame China for being here or wholly. You know, it's a reaction. It's a reaction to what's happened. All countries are going to do this in the global south. I mean, Africa will 100% do this. When Africa has its revolution, it will do this. It will close itself off and make sure to protect the hell out of its own borders. This is what the West has done to the world. But I will always say this, guys. Always understand the asymmetry of the situation, but also keep in mind what sort of world we want to build in the future or want to be a part of. Right? We should all be thinking about and accepting and acknowledging how the world is modeled right now. And we should work like hell to change that with an understanding of what sort of world we want to build. And otherwise, we're just going to ping pong between fucking imperial powers, and it's just going to be this for another fucking 1,000 years, you know? So we've got to be aware. We've got to be aware and ensure that we don't fall into some imperialist hellhole again. The Chinese century of humiliation that weighs on their collective conscience was directly caused by the West, so it's definitely a reaction. Yeah, of course it is. Like, India's going to be the same. All Asian countries, Africa's going to be like this. Latin America will be like this. You know, any global South nations, they'll be shutting their borders off. I mean, look at Iran. Iran will come out of what's happening right now, and it will be hyper protective of its own country. Like, way more than it was before. Iran will be way more aware of what it needs to do. So, yeah, this is a symptom of European colonization, white supremacy, capitalism. Welcome to this shit fucking protectionist world where everyone's kind of like so focused on their own situation because the West is constantly knocking on your door trying to take your shit, you know? Anyway, this is another one. Can there ever really be one China? This is another Vox doco. I watched a little bit of this this morning. I wanted to bring this to you guys and how the Republic of China was formed, etc. A lot of people are going to have their own opinions about this. That's okay. But I thought even just a little bit of information here is good. It does seem to be the way the world to fall into imperialism / colonialism / racism, where countries abuse and use others. You would think by 2026, we as humanity would want more equality and fairness. Maybe not. Yeah, but here's the thing though, next to the moon. What Europe did is so uniquely evil and industrialized that if we bounce back into an empire from this, another imperialist sort of chapter, the next imperial machine will be far worse than what Europe did. We just can't now accept another global power like the United States. We can't have that happen again. If that happens, it will be worse because that's how these cycles work.
Take a look at Taiwan's passport covers through the years. You'll notice that in the first few iterations, the word Taiwan never actually appears on the passport cover. In fact, the word Taiwan doesn't even appear until 2003. And that's because, well, Taiwan didn't always identify itself as Taiwan. It originally identified itself as China, the Republic of China. But this is also China, the People's Republic of China. So when did Taiwan emerge as an identity of its own on this passport? And if the People's Republic of China is insistent on the One China principle, is it even possible for Taiwan to maintain its autonomy? The story of how two Chinas emerged started in 1927 with the bloody civil war between two political parties, the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese Nationalist Party. This war lasted over 2 decades. By October 1949, the Chinese Communist Party claimed victory, and the Nationalists retreated to the island of Taiwan, which had previously been a Japanese colony, but was handed over to China when Japan surrendered at the end of World War II.
Beginning in December 1949, on his island sanctuary, Jiang worked toward the day when China could be freed from the communist yoke.
From 1949, 1950 onward, you have two separate jurisdictions. They both claim legitimacy, so they all both claim that they are representative of China.
On the mainland, the communists declared their country the People's Republic of China. On Taiwan, the nationalists kept the name the Republic of China.
There are multiple claims of what China is, what it ought to be, and it's confused by the fact that they use the same term.
No, it's not about fearing the next one. It's about making sure we understand what sort of world we want to build and be very clear about it. This is another thing I just want to bring up about leftists is it's anchored in a political philosophy rather than anchored in outcomes / material situations of people. We can't be wedded to a type of political system. We've got to be, I think, more focused on what sort of world, like an equitable world for all is one of those things. But I think a lot of people are too wedded to political models. Way too wedded to political models.
And you can see that reflected in the design of the first passport from Taiwan in 1949. The cover only says Passport of the Republic of China with no mention of Taiwan. To add some more complexity,
I think leftism has become a no, I don't think we're talking about ultras. Honestly, I don't. I think leftism has become kind of a brand rather than a movement. Yeah, I agree. Labels are very overrated. Like, why do we care how the end state will be if we're taking the world towards a more equitable world for all? You know, it's like, let's measure something that gets us there. Yeah, exactly, Nuking God.
So the question of who is the real China, the ROC, not the PRC, got a seat as the founding member of the United Nations in 1945, before the Chinese Civil War had even ended. This seat went to Chiang Kai-shek, the then leader of the ROC, because he was the one who brought his army onto the side of the Allies against Japan during World War II.
Because the ROC was one of the allies, it had an important role in establishing the United Nations, the basic institutions, and the UN Charter.
From 1945 to 1971, the United Nations recognized the Republic of China on Taiwan as
next to the moon. That's happened because of 600 years of Western colonialism and white supremacy, right? Like, therefore the institutions, global institutions we have right now are very sort of, they empower the West. And wealth still flows from the global South to the West. And we've got to change that. We've got to ensure that the institutions we have in play are not biased. They're equitable. Which is a very different thing. Hey, Gust, welcome. Good to see you, Gust. And I think what you're talking about with borders, etc., I think once people's material conditions start to improve, I think the global south, with all the struggles that it has had, I think is in a really good position to use that wealth wisely, as long as there are equitable outcomes. And for me, it starts with our global institutions having the power to act in an equitable, democratic way. I.e., the UN, with its veto power, is fucking insane. That a handful of countries, one country can fuck up everything. Yeah, like genocide in Gaza can be continued because one country puts its hand up to keep it going. Like, that is just too much asymmetry. We got to be better than this. We can be better than this. And that's what I mean is you're looking at a world right now where how it's modeled is very much a Western benefiting world. But that's the model we need to undo. And that's part of decolonization.
Is the real China. But come the Cold War, the concept of China shifts.
Essentially, the Soviets and the PRC have a falling out, and the U.S. is looking for an opportunity to put the Soviets in a tougher position. So one of the things that they decide to do is to move closer to the PRC.
And how the U.S. triangulated itself between the PRC and the ROC became more and more significant. Henry Kissinger, then the U.S. National...
in America, I don't see many leftists with actual, in a global sense, mostly liberal and conservative. I think what Western leftism often, especially white leftism, often leaves out, I've said this many times, is they leave out white supremacy and the impacts of white supremacy and white privilege in their own leftist politics. And often, if you leave that out, it's just not particularly useful. It's not useful, right? Like, we've got to acknowledge the role of white supremacy and white privilege in the world that we live in, because wealth still moves from the global south to the west, largely. And until that happens, white privilege is a real deal.
National Security Advisor secretly visited China in 1971. Following his trip, President Nixon became the first U.S. president to publicly visit communist China after 2 decades of diplomatic isolation. During this time, the UN passed Resolution 2758, where it recognized the PRC as the only legitimate representative of China.
Honestly, like, my goal in my life is if we can get discourse about changing GDP, about replacing GDP, like by the time I'm, say, like 70 years old, if I live that far, if I live that long, if we can get a movement of a, replace GDP movement, and we get it like a global movement to replace the GDP with a more equitable measure, man, like, even if it's just a movement, I've planted a seed, right? Like, I've planted a seed of a tree that I will never sit under. That is the goal of how I want to spend my life. That's the goal. Like, I know that now. And if we can make that happen over the next couple of generations, I think those changes that we want of, like, equitable outcomes for everyone, that will happen automatically. The problem is we are what we measure. If we measure exploitation and call it growth, we're going to keep getting exploitation and we're going to keep calling it growth.
And with that, the ROC lost its seat at the UN.
Beijing and Washington, they get closer because they both see a common enemy in the Soviet Union. The decision to move closer to the US remained actually quite contested within the PRC. The US was seen as this sort of the leader of this sort of imperialist capitalist world. So it takes Mao dying in 1976 and also Deng Xiaoping coming to power and being able to sideline his rivals for the US and the PRC to move closer together.
A happiness measurement? No, it's too subjective. I think we need objective measures. And equitable outcomes is an objective measure. I think when you start to get too subjective, things can go very wrong. I think we do need objective measures. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. A happiness, I think, is a symptom of an equitable measure, in my opinion. I think it's too subjective, man, happiness. We need to measure proportional wealth gaps, education outcomes, cost of living. Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, Lord Lee, like, we need something like a GDP. You know, we need something like a GDP, but for equity. It's got to be easy to communicate, easy to understand, just like GDP. Because that's why GDP works. It's easy. And leftists need to become better communicators. Leftists need to make hard concepts simple, because humanism, equal human rights for all, an equitable world for all, you know, these are tough concepts for people to understand. Not as manipulatable as GDP. Yeah, exactly.
New beginning in U.S.-China relations.
Is this Professor Zhang? No.
3 years after Mao's death, the U.S. formalized its own recognition of Beijing as the sole government in China. This birthed America's version of the One China policy.
The government of the United States of America acknowledges the Chinese position that there is but one China, and Taiwan is part of China.
All right, I know it looks like it's just me out here, but producing stories like this takes a whole team. Reporters, editors, fact checkers, animators, camera people you don't even see right now, so much more, all working together to make journalism that's accurate, nuanced, and hopefully fun to watch. And if high quality independent journalism is important to you, then you would love our Vox community on Patreon. For a few dollars a month, you can get access to exclusive video reporting, new shows we're developing, and a chance to chat directly with our journalists, like me. And if you're not able to support financially right now, which is totally understandable, you can follow us on Patreon for free to stay connected and see what we're working on next. And now, let's get back to the video.
Hey, by the way, I've made a failsafe on TikTok, a complete failsafe on TikTok, so that videos don't just end up playing forever. Check this out. This is a 10-second failsafe. Are you guys ready? So if I press this, you'll see the screen. But guess what? You'll see the image I want to show you 10 seconds down the line. Gone. It's gone. Yeah, never again will I forget that the screen. I'll never get another ban. You see my clothes brush? There's always a solution. This way, the watching experience can be optimized.
In the 80s and 90s, the concept of China evolved again as a new Taiwanese identity began to emerge, especially as our government started to democratize.
Taiwan was under martial law for 38 years. And so by the early 1990s, Taiwan had moved from what was effectively a police state to a full-fledged democracy.
A pivotal moment took place in 1995. The president of Taiwan, Lee Teng-hui, who had been appointed by his predecessors, so not yet democratically elected, spoke at his alma mater, Cornell University.
His visit to the United States is the first by a Taiwan leader since the United States severed diplomatic relations with that country in 1979.
The administration of then U.S. President Bill Clinton initially blocked Lee's visa.
At that point in time, the U.S. was trying to still improve its ties with the PRC. It was very wary of a potential upsetting of the relationship.
But the Republican-led Senate pushed for his visit to be approved.
They went around President Clinton, who was in office at that time, and approved an unofficial visit by Lee Teng-hui to Cornell University.
Today, the institutions of democracy are in place in the Republic of China. human rights are respected and protected to a very high degree. Democracy is thriving in my country.
And that visit was seen as important because it raised the visibility of the ROC as Taiwan. So people in Taiwan saw that they had a degree of international recognition, that Lee Teng-hui was well received in the United States.
Everyone's so like, I think everybody don't feel pessimistic about this moment. If anything, you should be feeling historically optimistic, because there is a guy in power in the most powerful, coercive, violent country ever in the history of the human race. One of, Britain and the Europeans were pretty bad too. Who is dismantling Western hegemony, who's dismantling American imperialism. He's doing it because of his ego. He's doing it because he just can't stop. And this is an opportunity for us to use this momentum and build and use the gains. These are historic gains for equity. Like if Biden and Kamala were in power, they would have just done all of this without us knowing what was going on. They would have used coercion. They would have used soft power. They would have used all of this and kept the status quo. But what Donnie's done is he's completely exposed the system, and he's tweeting his way into oblivion. Or he's tweeting America into oblivion, and we're all seeing it happen in real time. And for us, we've got to take this moment as an opportunity and see it as a really good, see it as a good platform, a foundation for us to unite around, an equitable world for all, or whatever it may be. This is the time to build community. This is the time. Yeah, this is the time to organize. If you're going to do it, this is the time to do it. So, don't wait for him to, shit the bed. Like, start building community now. Start organizing.
States. It also marked a shift in the way the leaders of Taiwan viewed their claim on China as one China, but open to multi.
Do you think Biden, Kamala, and the Democrats would have attacked Iran like Trump Republicans did? I think what Biden and Kamala did was create room for Israel to attack Iran. I think Biden and Kamala laid the foundation for the attack on Iran to happen, whether it was Biden or Kamala or Trump who were in power. I think Biden and Kamala, what they did was give Netanyahu infinite political protection, and he just used all of that freedom to, commit these crimes. They kept they kept giving him bombs, and they didn't question him. So whether Trump was in power or not, it wouldn't have mattered. They empowered Netanyahu.
Multiple interpretations.
We, in the Republic of China on Taiwan, have found that peaceful transformation must take place gradually and with careful planning.
Essentially, the Taiwan side, even though they kept the ROC name, accepted that, their jurisdiction is limited to Taiwan Island, Penghu, Matsu, Jinmen, and other outlying islands. They essentially accept, the PRC as being the government on the mainland.
But Beijing saw Lee's visit as a violation of their one China principle, the one in which...
Think about it this way. If America had stopped the genocide early and sought some sort of diplomatic solution, instead of allowing where we are, or allowing Netanyahu to commit genocide and also invade Lebanon and invade Syria. And remember, during Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's presidency, Israel bombed Iranian embassies, which is considered an attack on Iran itself. Right? So what else? The pager attack, the terrorist attack with the pagers, that happened during the Biden administration. Right? They gave Netanyahu everything, and they paved the way for this moment. And you can't downplay that. It's not just about, Trump bombing Iran. It's about what has led to the bombing of Iran. And Kamala Harris and Joe Biden paved the way.
New follower detected.
South Africa Uncut. Hey, South Africa Uncut. Salam. Welcome. Yeah, so I don't like that question of would Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have done this? If it wasn't for them, this wouldn't have happened.
Reunification was the goal, and Taiwan was part of the People's Republic
Truth
of China.
Sensei, hello.
The PRC became very uncomfortable with Lee Teng-hui's increasingly pro-Taiwan independence rhetoric. He followed Taiwan public opinion, which generally was not supportive of eventual unification with the PRC.
The PRC clearly didn't like that very much, and so what they decided to do was to launch a series of missile exercises in 95 and 96. Now, some of that was to show opposition, but a lot of it was also to scare Taiwanese voters from supporting Lee Teng-hui. But the missile exercises had the opposite effect.
The specter of China launching missiles near Taiwan's major ports led to a sort of rally around the flag effect, where Lee Teng-hui became more popular than he was before. And in 1996, of course, there was the first direct presidential election.
How is America weaker? I can answer that question if you'd like. You want me to answer that question?
Lee Teng-hui ran in
or is
and
that
won that election.
A rhetorical
From
question?
there, Taiwan's position veered further from the one China that the PRC envisioned. By 2000, the people of Taiwan elected Chen Shui-bian, their first president from the Democratic Progressive Party, a new party whose charter included aspirations for independence.
It's not necessarily a declaration of independence, but it was there because of the sort of coalition that they had to build.
This marked a significant change since Lee's Cornell speech that still identified his country as...
Yeah, I'll tell you how this moment makes America so much weaker than it was. Okay, it's across a couple of different areas. Firstly, the simplest thing: America's brand hasn't been more hated than it is in this moment. America's brand is, because the world understands how the systems work. I think America's brand is as tarnished as it has ever been. Number one, okay. Number two is the war in Iran has done something from a geopolitical power perspective that most people like to ignore or don't understand. And that is why America cares so much about the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf. It's because America controls the movement of energy around the world. Okay? America controls the movement of oil around the world. They say, freedom of movement, but it's not the case. It's not about freedom of movement. It's about controlling that movement, because most of that oil that flows to many different countries is paid for using the US dollar. America has a sort of paywall, a global paywall on oil, and no one can deal in energy without America clipping the ticket or America watching you. That power has not only been exposed, has actually been weakened because Although America controls the oil, China controls the future of energy generation, and that is renewable energy. China basically owns the energy supply chain from minerals to end product. Okay, so the future of energy generation are renewable sources. So this moment here with oil in such a precarious position has caused what's called demand destruction. Most oil crises cause this. A lot of countries like Australia, Asia, like the continent of Asia, is basically starting to see how much risk there is to rely on oil as a primary source of fuel. So there's already movements to mass install renewable sources of energy. Okay, so that's two. America's grip on global energy is weakening, and China's grip on global energy is starting to tighten. The third thing here is because of their energy shift. Actually, I'll come back to that. The third thing here is the West has been through a phase of deindustrialization. And that means, but Halep, like, you don't understand the difference between Venezuelan oil, American oil, and Iranian oil. They're different sort of crudes. Venezuela is heavy crude. America is light crude. And what Iran has is the best sort of crude for the most profitable production of oil-based products. America doesn't have that. Venezuela's is very heavy, which means more investment to process that same oil. It's not going to replace any supply. We are currently, as America, for example, its reserves that it has been drawn down to historically low levels. Like, this is 1983 levels of reserves right now in America. So it doesn't matter that Venezuela is in the picture. Venezuelan oil isn't particularly easy to refine. And it's not like it can just start to refine that oil easily. So here's the third thing that America and the West is going through right now. And that is dealing with deindustrialization. Okay? What the European powers, white supremacist and capitalist powers, did was introduce something called globalization, okay, a few decades ago. And that was those brown and black people over there, they can make our things and we will just profit off it, which was the Western model of globalization, colonization 2.0, right? But what that did is they moved all of their production offshore. America did this like on a massive scale. America moved their production and deindustrialized itself and became reliant on China, India, Bangladesh, all of these other places. Now, America's trying to get that production back into its own country, but it can't do it because it's not set up for it. It's not set up for it. Right? It's just not set up to bring all of that labor back into its own borders. So America has become so reliant on the global South that even if it wanted to, it couldn't bring that production into America. It just doesn't have the workforce or the scale. So it's a three-pronged thing, right? America is losing control of its brand around the world. America is losing control of its energy dominance around the world because of demand destruction and the transition from oil and gas to clean energy. And three, the West deindustrialization has made it very reliant on the global South. And it needs the global South in order to continue to maintain its consumption economies. Kia ora, Darlene. So we are in a moment, a transformational moment, where geopolitical power is transitioning from the West to the global South. It's going to happen over the next 2 to 3 decades, but it's happening now. And the front line of this right now has become Iran and the Strait of Hormuz. Because what Iran showed the world is that there are limits to American imperialism. And the rest of the world is looking and going, well, there you go. That's how you beat America. Right? Coercion isn't going to work anymore. The world understands what these powers are now. So the world's moving on. The world's growing. Economies are starting to grow.
As the Republic of China on Taiwan.
We've now got a Taiwan today where the large majority of people in Taiwan identify as just Taiwanese. And so that then shifts.
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? It's back. Saved you. Did you guys, hopefully that made sense, guys. In my read of the situation, it's 3 things. It's brand. America's brand is almost it's at historic lows. America's grip on global energy is starting to loosen. And 3, the deindustrialization of the West has caused the West to give up production, and it just doesn't have the scale nor the ability to bring back that production into the West.
The incentives of politicians running for elected office.
In 2002, President Chen pushed forward legislation to add the English word Taiwan to their passport. By 2003, the first passports with Taiwan on the cover were issued. Since then, the word Taiwan has remained on the Republic of China passport, and the text itself has gotten larger, a reflection of how design mirrors identity.
And there's a pragmatic reason for this as well. It clarified that this was not the People's Republic of China. And as a practical matter, the Taiwan ROC passport today is actually relatively powerful.
But as the word Taiwan became more prominent alongside Taiwanese identity, so has Beijing's calls for nationalism and its One China reunification goals.
What happens is the PRC becomes the world's second largest economy. It has a lot more capabilities that it can bring to bear. So it really wants to further isolate Taiwan and bring it under its fold if possible. And so it starts trying to be more insistent on its One China principle.
So many other countries which could safely ignore Chinese objections 25 or 30 years ago are now in a much more vulnerable position. The PRC has much more leverage economically over a lot of countries.
As recently as May 2026, China removed tariffs on all African nations except for one, Eswatini, a country that still has diplomatic ties with Taiwan. As for the U.S., one of the largest trading partners of the PRC,
President Xi stressed to President Trump that the Taiwan question is the most important issue in China-U.S. relations. Talk to me about that moment when that was discussed.
Well, they certainly feel that way, and they always raise that issue. And we understand they raise that issue. From our perspective, any forced change...
The next thing to look out for from an American perspective is Latin America is going to get molested by America, by the United States of America. The United States is going to molest Latin America. Hopefully that was clearer. Because it's starting to lose its grip in the Middle East. It doesn't have the dominance that it used to, so it's going to try and dominate it close to itself. And you can see already what's going on in Honduras, in all the elections, Peru, Colombia, all of these places, they're meddling in everything. The other big thing that's going to happen, guys, is migration. I think the next massive, the thing that's going to make global economies struggle and put pressure on the whole globe, particularly the global south, and the West movement of people, is going to be the next thing. Climate change, war, just a whole bunch of stuff that the West has done to the world is going to lead to, I think, one of the largest displacement / movement of people. Water, rising water levels, just access to fresh water, all of this stuff is going to make the world, it is going to cause one of the largest people movements, migration crises the world has ever seen. And we're slow walking into it. We're blindfolded and we're not seeing it, but it is going to happen. It's going to happen. We're not that far away from it either. Just this year in the Mediterranean, over 1,000 people have drowned in the Mediterranean, trying to cross the Mediterranean Sea from North Africa to Europe. 1,000 people. The thing I hated about what the Pope said, he went to the Canary Islands and he spoke about the 1,000 people, and he started talking about all of these, traffickers and they're not good people, etc. But the people who give those traffickers money and the people who give them the funding is the European Union. The European Union funds these police states, Libya, Tunisia, all of these places. The EU is paying people there to crack down and creating Europe and America, the West, are creating conditions for people to make people move. And the world is just kind of like, oh, more people drowned in the Mediterranean Sea. Isn't that bad? It's going to increase by a lot.
The status quo and the situation that's there now would be bad for both countries.
They do see value in the continued self-governance of Taiwan, although they are reluctant to do anything about Taiwan independence because they know that that's provocative.
Though Taiwan does have its own economic bargaining chip, it's home to the company TSMC, which manufactured over 90% of the world's semiconductor chips in 2024.
So Taiwan, in other words, is economically just as important to the United States as the economic relationship with the PRC.
Yeah, it'll be fascism in the EU, but the thing is, fascism will continue to dismantle the EU. So when I see those protests in Belfast, I just think these Nazis are, it's such a massive own goal. These Nazis are dismantling the white supremacist framework. They're not enabling it. They're not empowering it. They're dismantling it by carrying out this violence because people can see it. Have you heard about what's happening in Pakistan? Do you mean the border, Pakistan and Afghanistan, or is there something different?
Despite the U.S.'s reluctance to recognize Taiwan as its own country,
Hey, Ahmed,
it still
welcome.
hedges defensively against Beijing in the Asia-Pacific region. And the U.S. remains Taiwan's biggest weapons dealer, supplying more than 70% of its conventional arms imports. But the people caught in the middle of this geopolitical crossfire are the residents of Taiwan itself.
Yes. In Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, we spoke about that a couple of days ago, that people were killed with the protests.
especially those who were born and raised there and have no connection to the revolutionary past of the Chinese Civil War.
They felt that their futures were just given away without their consent.
Now, the PRC is not a democracy. There's no signs that it's going to become a democracy anytime soon. The idea of an independent Taiwan is still anathema to the CCP in Beijing and is probably a cause for war.
The majority of people in Taiwan just want...
By the way, when a white guy in the West says democracy, what he means is subservient to the West. That's what he means. That guy, when he said a democracy, that's why democracy will never ever be a model for the global South until it's equitable for all. Democracy in the global South just means Western control. Until that doesn't happen anymore, until that doesn't exist, then there's no such thing as democracy in the global South. Hey, Penn, welcome.
The status quo. They are willing to live with this sort of very vague international status that they have because they essentially don't want war, even though they also don't want PRC or CCP control over them. Now, this gets us back to the question of what is China? Should it be some political entity or can it be something that's more vague? Today, as these claims about unity and control become more important,
is it your area, Sabah?
Becomes more challenging.
So as the People's Republic of China becomes more powerful, how it enforces its version of the One China principle and where the U.S. chooses to stand will have major impacts on global alliances, especially for Taiwan.
It's a crazy time in the world, eh? It is such a crazy, crazy time. I can't even... Man, this is why you can get caught up in all of this mess. You can get caught up in all of this mess and forget what we're all doing this for. You know, that's why I like objectivity in terms of how we measure whether the world is getting better or worse. And replacing GDP is, I think, low-hanging fruit. But it'll take time to replace it. It will well beyond my lifetime for sure. But I think we need a way as we're navigating through this mess. We need a way to be able to continually measure and understand the world. I just think equity has to be measured. Otherwise, we're gonna constantly be faced with situations where there's just too much going on and we don't understand. We need something to ground us. We need something that gives us a view of how things are going. And GDP isn't it. Juan, welcome. Trump says peace deal. This is a New York Times article. Trump says peace deal will be signed Sunday, but Iran disputes timeline. An Iranian foreign ministry official sought to temper expectations, saying there were no plans for a Sunday signing and an agreement could be inked in the coming days. President Trump said that the United States and Iran would sign a peace deal on Sunday, though Iran's foreign ministry publicly cautioned. This is why this whole memorandum thing is such a farce. It's I don't think we're going to be getting a signature in the next 12 to 24 hours. I just don't think we're there yet. But if we do, it will be. Yeah, I don't see it happening. That's all. Okay, we're moving on to the next subject, and that is going to be focused on migration. Europe's border regime is breaking its own legitimacy, okay? I do want to focus on this subject a bit more in the next, few months, weeks, months, because this is a growing problem. Will the new EU migration rules work.
The European Union's new migration policy comes into force. The sweeping pact aims to tighten border controls and change asylum rules. But will it deter people from seeking refuge in Europe? And what role have the bloc's politics played? This is Inside Story.
Guys, I made a little bit of progress on my documentary about this. I made a little bit of progress. I don't know if I should share share progressively on where I'm at or not, but I think it'll be quite cool to involve you guys in the process of creating this documentary about migration. I don't know how to do it yet, but I'll figure it out.
Hello, welcome to the program. I'm Anna Burns-Francis. It's called the European Union Pact on Migration and Asylum, and it took effect on Friday. The policy is the culmination of years of tough negotiations between member states on how to handle incoming asylum seekers and other migrants. The pact is being described as the most significant overhaul of Europe's migration rules to date, and it introduces stricter measures for people who want to enter the EU. Human rights groups and the left say the reforms could undermine the rights of people seeking refuge, but the right says the new policy doesn't go far enough. In a moment, we'll discuss with our guests the challenges Brussels is facing to implement this pact. But first, this report from Ferdia Carr.
Here's my view on immigration. I don't think the West, after what Europe and white supremacy has done to the world, has any right to close its borders. I think immigration to the West is reparations. I think it should be open borders in the West. The West lost the ability to dictate terms about people movement when it decided to enslave and mass slaughter so many of our ancestors. I don't think the West has a leg to stand on here, but that's my take on it.
The European Union is implementing a sweeping overhaul of its migration rules. The Pact on Migration and Asylum aims to tighten controls at Europe's borders, with quick, mandatory screening for migrants through an EU-wide database, faster returns for people whose asylum claims are rejected, and a so-called solidarity mechanism, compelling member states to either relocate asylum seekers where most arrive, like Italy and Greece, or provide other aid. Immigration has been an increasingly divisive issue across Europe, in both the EU and non-member states. Earlier this week, a knife attack in the northern Irish city of Belfast triggered violence, with masked attackers targeting homes they believe belong to foreign-born residents. And anti-immigrant sentiment has led to a surge in support for far-right parties across the EU. That largely began after 2015, when record numbers of asylum seekers began arriving in Europe. They were fleeing war and instability in Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, and elsewhere.
They were fleeing instability, war, all of this stuff created by the West.
Scenes of families arriving on overcrowded boats or drowning in the attempt to cross led to calls for them to be allowed safe passage. The same year, Germany allowed more than 1 million asylum seekers to enter the country. Now, the far-right anti-immigration AfD party leads opinion polls. Mainstream parties there and across Europe are increasingly appealing to anti-immigration sentiment.
In the last 13 months, EU colleagues have told me the German attitude was the problem, that they wanted to go much further to enforce stricter regulations in Europe, that Germany was the brake on that. Well, we're no longer slowing down the train. Now we're in the driver's seat.
EU researchers also warn that misinformation online is fueling anti-migrant views. For European leaders, the pact is more than an overhaul of asylum-seeking procedures.
All of this is happening because of the West's shrinking grip on the world. And this fascism is rising because a lot of these right-wing parties believe in this great replacement theory and, you know, keeping whiteness pure and very racist shit. Like, honestly, eugenics. All of these people are like that. When they talk about civilization, they're talking about Europe and America and whiteness. Okay? So they are all starting to feel very fragile about this moment where power is changing hands. You know, when you lived with privilege, equality feels like oppression. The world is starting to rise. The global south is gaining more and more power, and the West just doesn't like it. So the West is becoming very insular. And in moments like this, you will see the rise of the right wing, because it's more nationalist and, you know, patriotic, and it's just hate. They just hate. That's it. Dude, my president went to some West African countries and treated everyone like shit. I'm happy French companies are getting ousted from many African countries, yeah.
It's an attempt to convince increasingly skeptical voters that the bloc is responding to their concerns. But rights groups say it may jeopardize the rights of those seeking protection.
Kia ora, SJP, welcome.
Freddie Akar, Al Jazeera for Inside Story.
It's so funny, like, people trying to convince others that what's happening in Belfast isn't just white supremacist, white fragility on display, like racist pogroms. I've said this before, I say it again. There is no violence like white fragility. No violence. Oh, God forbid you make white people feel fragile. They'll start murdering everybody.
All right, let's bring in our guests for today. Marta Welander is EU Advocacy Director at International Rescue Committee. She joins us from Brussels. Natalie Tocci is a Professor of Practice at Johns Hopkins University, SAIS Europe. She's joining us from Rome. And Peter Klepper is Editor-in-Chief at BrusselsReport.eu, also joining us from Brussels. And welcome to each of you. Thank you. Marta, can I start with you? Does Europe have an immigration problem?
Thank you very much for having me. I think it's certainly safe to say that there was a need for an overhaul of the previous system in how the EU and its member states approached migration and asylum. I think, of course, there was a need to ensure that there wasn't a disproportionate responsibility laid upon the countries of first entry, such as Italy, Spain, Cyprus, Greece. There was also a strong need to find solutions for the inadequate reception facilities and capacity and asylum processing systems, and indeed a need for safe and legal.
Europe can't afford another war within its own borders. The reason why World War II became a world war as it was mainly because of the colonies, right? Europe threw black and brown bodies at the problem. Obviously, Japan and China going at it was also a big thing, but it was within colonies, and that's how it spread around the world. This time, if Europe starts to fight each other, they don't have black and brown bodies to throw at the problem. If Europe starts fighting each other, it's gonna be them. That's it. No one's gonna fucking join. I can guarantee you, every fucking Indian, whether it's like right wing or left wing, they're gonna say, no, you go fight your own fucking war. Okay? I think a lot of Africans will do the same too. But this time, they don't have their colonies to throw at the problem.
Pathways. So in that sense, indeed, there were shortcomings and issues in the EU's previous approach. But I think what we're concerned about here is that the pact that now will start being implemented, that it may not provide durable solutions to these issues in ways that also uphold fundamental rights and international refugee law.
Yeah. Natalie, can I ask you, you are in Rome, so you are in Italy, one of the countries that is geographically the front line as it stands for this issue. But the EU has dozens of state members. Has this been a failing on behalf of other countries not to support those that are that first line for refugees?
If Russia wants to take EU, I won't mind. Nah, bro. I don't think that's good for anybody. Honestly, that's not good for anybody. Here's my sort of thinking around how Russia should see how Europe should see this moment. For me, this is a moment for Europe for reconciliation and reparations. Okay, this is about helping the world decolonize. If Europe can be part of that in assisting the world decolonize and begin to, build an equitable world for all, and Europe opens its doors and not like this, just racist fucking laws, I think Europe has this opportunity now to truly reach out to the world and make amends. But Europe isn't going to do that because Europe has the same fucking issue that any colonizers have. It is ego. They still believe that they can control the world like they used to. They still believe that they can hang on to this sliver of power they still have in order to, continue to extract wealth from the global south. It's changing. And Europe can either look inward or it can start to approach the world with human rights and equity in mind. I think Europe has a really good opportunity here to do that. But nah, bro, not with that generation leading Europe. It's fucked.
Arriving on the shores of the European continent.
I mean, if you look at the number of asylum seekers in general, of also migrants in Italy compared to other European countries, particularly North European countries, actually still today there is a much, much higher number of both refugees and migrants in North European countries. So if you're simply looking at this as a...
EU wants war with Russia? No. EU wants to throw Ukrainian bodies at Russia. EU wants to throw those Ukrainian Slavs at Russia. That's all it wants to do. Europe does not want to throw its own bodies at the problem. They don't want to get involved. You think if Russia bombs Poland tomorrow, that the whole of Europe is gonna fucking attack Russia? No, bro. They're gonna do. You know what they're gonna do? Europe, Western Europe in particular, is going to adjust the NATO charter until Poland is fucked again, and that's it. Europe is using Ukraine as human shields. After Ukraine gets fucked up even more, they'll use Polish people as human shields. Europe doesn't give a fuck about human life, bro.
Question of overall numbers, then actually no. Now, of course, there has been a moment, a turning
sorry, Europe does give a fuck about life. White lives.
Point, because, once upon a time, if we go back to the 1990s, to the early 2000s, actually the direction that migrants and refugees came into Europe was actually fairly, in a sense, distributed, right? I mean, there were migrants, particularly in the 1990s, refugees coming from the Balkans. Then, of course, there was Afghanistan, the Middle East, Africa. So the geographical distribution was really rather varied, particularly after the Arab uprisings. And particularly given that the Arab uprisings essentially came just before just before the sovereign debt crisis in Europe, which, as we know, hit particularly Southern Europe. What you end up having is...
Polish people and Ukrainians are as white as you get? No, bro. Slavs have never ever been part of whiteness. They have been part of whiteness when it's been useful for whiteness. Slavs have always been on the edge of whiteness. Always. Polish people treated like shit in Britain for so many fucking decades. Slavic people are not part of the umbrella of whiteness. Trust me. There will be. It's a historical thing. Slavic people were enslaved. Today, people will say, "Oh, white people used to be enslaved." No, they didn't. It was Slavic people. Slavic people were never considered white.
In those years, so, starting 2011, 12, 13, 14, is basically, on the one hand, this flux that is particularly coming from sub-Saharan Africa through North Africa, given that it is going through a moment of destabilization in the context of the Arab uprisings, which then, of course, arrives at the first port of arrival, which are southern European countries, which in those years were undergoing an economic crisis. So that's the moment in which basically the mechanism, right, let's call it the implicit social contract on migration in Europe breaks, right? And it's really been since then that Europeans have been on the search for a new model. Now, of course, the problem, and as indeed, we were beginning to discuss a moment ago, the problem is that this all happens also at a time in which there is this first wave of growing nationalist populism in Europe, and then, of course, the second wave, which is what we're in now. And so, in a sense, there are pretty good reasons why, of course, the underlying contract governing both asylum and migration in Europe need to be rethought. But that rethinking is happening in a fundamentally different political climate in Europe, which ends up with the solutions, which we're probably going to end up talking about in just one moment.
Yeah, Peter, can I bring you in here? Because Natalie's point is that this is a migration that has been happening for years and years and years. And yet we are in a moment of increased nationalism and more populism in politics. And so why now has this become the propelling moment for a change in the way the union does handle migration?
Yeah. It's right now. I think there are a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is I think Europe is taking a war stance, and populism and nationalism helps recruitment. I think that's what's happening. I think populism is a reaction to a growing climate of, setting up for war. And whenever there's this populist sentiment, easier to recruit people into the military. Honestly, if the political class is very involved in stoking these fires. Okay, they're very involved. We fund an army called Frontex. Yeah, Frontex is insane. Yes, Frontex is very evil. Until England returns to the EU, nothing substantive can happen. The EU is too weak economically without the UK. Is this deal for real or just talks? It's just talk. Hey. Creatious, welcome. Political class is attempting to take a war stance. I'm not sure it's going to work because it's not the 1930s anymore. Exactly, Ricky. That's what I was saying before, is they can't just throw black and brown bodies at the problem. There's no more colonies, right? They can't coerce the global south to fight for them anymore.
Well, I think slowly we have seen voters increasingly supporting immigration-critical political forces, or rather forces that want an end to some of the chaos that we've seen. Last year, still, despite the progress, still 200,000 people entered illegally into the EU. So, in a way, this debate is not even about do we want more migrants or less, or more asylum seekers or less. It's about making sure that the democratic policy choices on who is allowed to enter and who is not are respected.
Marta, can I come to you? Because there is that issue of being a migrant or being undocumented or being quote-unquote illegal. How much crossover is there really in terms of people who reach European shores or borders and claim that they need
Akudemo, it's a historic misstep if America nukes Iran. Like, already this war with Iran is historic. I mean, I've been thinking about it. Iran has so many options in that scenario. It will just dump its nuclear material into the Persian Gulf and make life inhabitable. There's just too many things that can go wrong. There's no way that nuking Iran solves any problem. If they do get nuked, it'll be so much more worse for the West. It's crazy, because immediately there'll be displacement for all of the Gulf states. Gulf states will be gone. Everything will get irradiated. This conversation is silly. The West is having a major birth decline. They need immigration. Yeah, Sheena. Like, I just don't understand this discourse. The only way I have understood it, Sheena, is that there's. I know there are wealthy people taking advantage of poor white people, with the rhetoric of, there's a great replacement theory happening in order to mobilize the white population, because Europe is taking a stance against war. Or Europe is trying to get ready for war. I just don't know what radicalizing these poor white people is going to do. I don't get it. Other than, destroy Europe from within.
Asylum. And how much of it is a problem when people become undocumented or quote-unquote overstay and become illegal?
Well, we know from working with communities and individuals across Europe, and in fact across the entire arc of displacement, that most people, of course, wish to go through legal routes. They wish to enter the system and become regularized. And in fact, of course, under international law and under refugee law, each person has the right to have their case.
Yeah, but Ricky, that would mean, stopping pillaging the global south and mass murdering people in the global south, and creating conditions where people in the global south can be happy about where they're living, without being exploited endlessly by the West, right? Like, if that can happen, then sure. But as long as Europe continues to meddle in the lives of others, then there's going to be migration. It's how it works.
Is individually and adequately assessed with the legal safeguards and with assistance to that. What we see much of the time is that people are trapped in lengthy asylum procedures because our reception and asylum systems are under-resourced, and there's a lot of strain on countries of first entry. And it therefore happens that sometimes people move on through secondary movements and may get lost in the system. So it's, of course, essential now that further resources are allocated to be able to...
These conversations also take the humanity away from it. Okay, they completely destroy the humanity of it. I just want to show you something that completely destroyed my soul when I saw it. I just want to show you. And let me bring this out. This is like soul destroying.
New follower detected.
That speck in the water there is a human body floating in the Mediterranean in the middle of nowhere. This year, there have been 1,000 people who have drowned in the Mediterranean trying to seek asylum in Europe. 1,000 people just this year so far. Over 1,000. That includes men, women, children, all ages, families, you name it. Ultimately, this is what this conversation is about. Okay? It is about stripping these people of their humanity so they become numbers against some immigration target. Okay? Ultimately, this is what is being enabled. This is what is being enabled. It is a death zone of human beings being murdered. Just constantly. These are the families, guys. These are the people. These are the families who are impacted. These are the families. These are the human beings that are constantly on this journey. Don't forget that. Behind these numbers are babies. Look at these people. Crammed into these dinghies. Miss Joe, you need to stop. Don't type in all caps. It's just what you're saying is just very racist. What you're saying is very racist. Stop, or we will mute you. I hate people who look at this and go, they are the problem. Like, how can these people be the problem, bro? They're literally risking their lives because they have no other option. This is what white supremacy is doing. Oh, what? Seriously? No, Miss Joe. Stop it. You're very racist. You're incredibly bigoted. There's a lady on TikTok going, stop, don't send the fighting age men, send the women and children. So you just want children to grow up without their fathers? Like, what the fuck is this racist shit? It's so idiotic, bro. These people, like, white supremacy should be studied. White supremacy should be studied. It is so dehumanizing. These fucking people are just incredibly broken. How can you look at these images and go, oh yeah, we don't want those people, fighting age men? And it's like the men in Belfast burning down fucking houses. White men. You don't have the right to say who you want and who you don't want. That's my opinion. Stop being idiots.
Process each an individual claim for asylum adequately and see who has a solid claim for asylum, who is eligible for international protection.
Natalie, can I pick up on the point there about the allocation of resources here? Because when we look back over the years, I think 2015, it was called a migrant crisis. And there was an argument at the time that the huge influx, the numbers as they were, I think political scientist Cas Mudde said, was it really a crisis? Because he argued that Europe had the financial resources to deal with this, and yet it didn't, is his argument. But also, may I suggest that it hasn't up until today?
Well, I mean, absolutely. In fact, the migration crisis has never really been a crisis about migration. It's a political crisis about migration. So it is not really about the...
It's complicated? What do you mean? It's not complicated. Stop fucking stealing from these countries. It's not complicated. Creating the situation where people get displaced and then telling the people being displaced that they're not welcome. Oh, is that a joke? Please put kappa at the end. If you're joking, just put kappa at the end. I have to like sift through racists all the time, and I don't know who's kappaing, who's not.
Actual flows, which even at their peak were, frankly speaking, for one of the richest continents on earth, Europe of almost 500 million people, of course that they can deal with an influx, even when it reached a peak of 3 million or something a year, right? So of course it's manageable. I mean, particularly honestly, if you compare it to the influx of refugees within the African country, within the Middle Eastern region. I mean, just think about the percentage of refugees in a country like Lebanon, right? So it's actually even shocking to use the word crisis when referring to it in terms of migration per se. Now, it has, of course, constituted a political crisis. It's been a crisis of solidarity within the Union, and it's been, of course, a major crisis of international solidarity vis-a-vis, indeed, the refugees and the migrants themselves, right? So it's a political crisis, and that political crisis has been both fed by and has in turn been feeding essentially the political crisis that is encapsulated by indeed what Cas Mudde works on, which is the rise of nationalist populism in Europe.
Yeah, and so Peter, if it is a political...
This is a really nice moment here. Nestori Irankunda, a refugee from Tanzania, Africa. Current status, dead set hero in the whole of Australia right now. He scored a goal in the World Cup. Awkward day to be a racist, ain't it? Bro, like, we've got to get over this. We've got to get over this. We've got to be smart. We've got to be a better world. Everyone deserves a life. Every single person who's alive. We have to treat life with a lot of care, kindness, and empathy. We have to. All life is sacred. And yet people treat these people like garbage, bro. Fuck, it's so shit.
Political crisis. Is this pact really the right approach to tackle it?
Well, there's good side, there's bad sides. Honestly, I think to redistribute people within a passport-free zone, the Schengen zone, and to present that as a solution for some of the, the migration pressures or the lack of quick procedures or safe pathways is just bizarre. And now we see countries like Poland basically refusing to implement that. And Poland is led by pro-EU governments, by Mr. Tusk. So honestly, I think a lot more can be expected from a different legal measure that is currently being negotiated, the returns regulation, which will, for the first time, allow EU countries to negotiate return hubs, which means that people entering illegally and then seeing their asylum request denied and then refusing to go back to their country of origin risk being sent over there, which may have quite an effect. At least that's what we see in a way. What has worked in Australia. The Australian system is not perfect, but if you compare the number of people dying at sea in Europe, that was, I think, 30,000 people in the last decades, compared to Australia, clearly it is a lot more humane to do it in this way, and people are not being duped by human smugglers also. Of course, on top of that, you do need legal pathways, but those need to be restricted by, the democratic choices of the European voters, of course.
The problem is, though, that is when populism and rhetoric comes into it, isn't it, Marta? That the voice of the people is not perhaps an accurate reflection of the situation or the issue or the means to solve it.
No, absolutely. And I think the return regulation that the previous speaker just referred to, I think
Morning, True Duck
cannot
Lover.
be
Welcome.
seen as a humane solution. We see it as a systematic dismantling, if anything, of protections and a significant setback for rights. It will be one of the most punitive immigration instruments that we have seen in recent EU history. It will lead to significantly ramped up deportation powers for EU member states. It's likely to lead to immigration raids, not only in people's homes, but potentially also within NGO facilities like ours. People will be uprooted from their communities where they may have lived now for several years in EU member states. Families will be torn apart likely, and people will be held in prison-like conditions. The Article 17 return hubs, these are bound to be legal black holes, offshore detention facilities. So I think it's important not to brush over this and refer to the return regulation as a humane system when it certainly isn't. We need to bear in mind the human realities of these policies and how they will affect individuals and communities who have come to Europe to seek protection.
Natalie, can I bring you in here? And perhaps you have some thoughts on this as well. They're called offshore return hubs. By another name, I assume most people would consider them a
at this point, I don't even know what version this is. Maybe like 10.0 or something. True Duck Lover.
Detention centre of sorts. Do you see it as problematic that Europe is outsourcing this to a third-party country, if I'm trying to use the most neutral?
Yes, exactly. Now they're hitting the nail on the head. Europe is outsourcing this to the likes of Tunisia and Libya, etc.
Language.
Well, of course, it's absolutely problematic. If we want to see a silver lining in this, in a weird way, it is that I don't think it will actually...
What differentiates the versions? The branding. So at some stage, they decided to call European colonization capitalism. And then, there's been globalization as well, the Industrial Revolution. Yeah, it's just rebranding. They started saying that they abolished slavery, but just built it in different ways. The rebranding of the largest man-made human suffering. There's been a few iterations of that.
Actually be implemented. And I don't think it will be implemented because in order for it to be implemented, what you need to have is those willing third countries. They may be terrible human rights violating countries, but they have to be terrible human rights violating countries that are actually willing to do this for the EU. Now, there may be a very short list of awful countries that are willing to do this, but it's an extremely short list because they need to get something in return, right? And, let's just take the example of Italy, Albania, right? So maybe you can have a country which is actually not awful. Albania, in the big scheme of things, it's definitely not an awful country. But, so Italy has been trying to do this. But Albania is, in a sense, more the exception than the norm, because we know that Albania Not only does it have, sort of long historical ties to Italy, and it therefore, in a sense, wants to be nice to Italy, but above all, Albania wants to enter the European Union. So even
the best sort of quote to marinate on, or the best sentiment to marinate on, is every empire eventually will be the refugees of the future. The empire's actions now are going to dictate how it's going to be treated in the future. It's really important.
Even if, and of course, as we know, those extraterritorial asylum processing centers in Albania are still not functioning after basically 4 years of a far-right government in Italy that promised that this would be its kind of, big thing. And they're still not working because of all sorts of legal problems related to it. But even if they were to work, as I said, it's connected to a particular demand that Albania has of entering the European Union. What Albania says is, if in 2 years' time we're actually within the European Union, of course we're going to stop doing this, right? So, and as I said, Albania is just one of those few countries which is actually willing to do this. Frankly speaking, I can't think of any other country that so far has signaled a willingness to be part of this scheme, right? So the EU can pass all the laws that it wants, all the pacts that it wants, doesn't necessarily mean, in brackets, thankfully, that it will actually be implemented.
Peter, the other two speakers have raised some valid points, and there has been criticism already that in countries the likes of Libya and Tunisia, which do see an influx of migrants waiting to make their journey, there are camps and there is recorded, documented cases of terrible assault and violence and all sorts of terrible crimes that occur. What responsibility does the European Union have, or should it have then, if it insists on having these offshore detention centres or hubs as a place to return to once people leave Europe?
Well, evidently, such hubs should remain under EU's jurisdiction. All the human rights standards should be respected there. If you look at Australia, they have not implemented it in a perfect way.
Yeah, one of the ways that this guy can sit there and say dumb shit like this is because they've delegated a whole bunch of tasks to different companies and different brands. So he can hide behind the complexity of it, right? He can hide behind the red tape. Ultimately, though, him just saying, oh, they should uphold international law and human rights laws, etc., aren't good enough. They're not going to do it. That's what the EU is relying on. They are delegating these crimes, and they've created a fragmented system to purposefully complicate and create more red tape so they can claim that they didn't know. I'm literally making a documentary about this now. I'm reading through all of this stuff, and this is how the EU works. It's so bad, bro. Like, they're doing it. They know what's happening.
But they did manage to stop the chaos. They did manage to avoid those mass drownings at sea that we've witnessed in Europe, the chaos. So, I mean, also the left-leaning political forces in Australia have been supporting this over, I think, almost 2 decades. Now, so what I think is that if you care about migration, if you care about asylum, and if you care about avoiding that the public turns against all of this, then you should be even more keen to stop the large-scale violation of migration policy, of the democratic choices made by European governments on who's allowed to enter and who's not allowed to enter. And I think at the moment, correct me if I'm wrong, 80% or 2/3 of people that are told they cannot remain in the EU they remain anyway. From a democratic point of view, this I think is a great problem. But also, if you care about migration and public support for migration, I think you should be alarmed by that, and it should be a priority to do something about it.
It's an interesting point you raised there, because you're tying one concept to another, if I've interpreted that right, that if you care about it, you have to do it a certain way. But as we see consistently, there are lots of different voices that have an opinion on this. Pope Leo has just been in Spain addressing a crowd that did include migrants. He said it is not enough to manage arrivals, distribute statistics, reinforce borders, or lament deaths after they have occurred. You, he said to the migrants, are not just numbers or files. You are people who have left behind families and homes. You have dreams that no one has the right to despise. Marta, I feel like you probably have quite a connection to this concept of what people go through when they make that decision to leave their home and leave.
You see that? That right there, that face of indignation, that's the most violent thing about white supremacy. That face right there. Because this guy doesn't give a fuck how many people die in the Mediterranean. He doesn't. He does not care. He does not give a shit. This is white supremacy.
Leave their country and to try and go into the unknown. And I just wonder if this is a moment where Europe has misunderstood how to tackle the problem because of that overarching influence of, if you care about migration, you care about stopping something rather than finding a way to resolve an unstoppable problem. Their homeland is not somewhere they can stay.
If one cares about immigration, stop invading their country, stop stealing their wealth. It's too late. 600 years of doing this. You can't just ignore, it's already happened. It's time. The consequences are here.
Sure, yeah, no, absolutely. And first of all, there is no solid or consistent evidence that I'm aware of that suggests that harsher policies of deterrence do create a significant deterrent effect, as it were. And this is indeed because many people are fleeing conflict, persecution, or entrenched poverty. They don't make their migration decisions based on detailed knowledge of European migration policies. Their primary concern is safety, survival, and the future of their families, quite frankly. And we really need to bear in mind also the realities of the migration journeys that these individuals take. The IRC works with a lot of displaced people around the world and in Europe. And we see that many people seeking protection have risked their lives, putting their lives indeed in the hands of smugglers, undertaking dangerous sea crossings, walking through deserts and fearing extortion and so forth. So someone who's willing to take those kinds of risks, they're unlikely to be deterred by the potential risk of being transferred to a so-called return hub. And moreover, the previous speaker also referred to these hubs operating under EU jurisdiction and upholding human rights or fundamental rights. It's extremely difficult to see how that would happen. It's not at all clear how these hubs will operate, who will be accountable for the rights and well-being of the individuals inside of them, and how European policymakers can in any way guarantee the safety. But I'd like to also very briefly come back to, again, what the previous speaker alluded to, that if one cares about people on the move, one would want to implement, for instance, the return regulation. From our side, we see it differently. We do, of course, agree that an orderly migration system is needed, of course. But our concern is that the current approach focuses primarily on detention and externalization. It's extremely expensive, as we know. We've seen the UK-Rwanda deal and how much that cost before it failed. Okay. But also, whilst this shows...
The Soviets only did 80%.
Very limited evidence that it actually does create durable solutions. Yeah. There are many other things.
America and Argentina took in the other 20%. No, they didn't. They left at least 15% in Germany.
Things that states need to do instead.
Natalie, can I come to you for the last comment? We have about a minute left. If you
No, hold on. I've got the math wrong. 20, you mean 80% killed, right? Nazis. So 20% were killed by the Allies. And a whole bunch were taken to Argentina and the US.
You can just give me a brief, then I'm sure everyone wants to know, will the pact work?
Again, will it work to actually govern migration into Europe? Frankly speaking, I have very, very low hopes. Will it work politically for European parties to the far right and the centre right, which have basically been those supporting this pact, to say that something is being done on migration? Maybe it will work, right? So I think, this entire conversation has really, put the focus on this complete mismatch between the actual practice of migration and governing migration and the political spin around it that particularly parties to the nationalist far right have been mobilizing in Europe.
All right. Natalie Tocci, a professor of practice at Johns Hopkins University, SAIS Europe, joining us from Rome. Marta Welander, EU Advocacy Director at International Rescue Committee.
Thank you. A really good page to follow on X, if you want to know what's going on, is SOS Mediterranean France, and they're constantly posting. They're constantly posting about the situation, in the Mediterranean. I found them through Zoe Gardner. Zoe Gardner is great as well, by the way, if you know who she is. Yeah. It's just so much happening, guys, here. It's so inhumane. They're treated like nothing. Okay, so thousands attend anti-racism rally in Belfast. Thousands gathered in Belfast for the Together Against Hate rally, rejecting racism and showing solidarity with migrant and minority communities. Refugees are welcome here. The protest follows days of unrest in Belfast where homes and vehicles were targeted. Protesters say, so the screen before was the guy stabbing the dude, the Sudanese man stabbing that guy. Protesters say far-right groups exploited the attack to promote anti-immigration policy.
These people were silent when women were attacked over the years, when there's...
Conspiracy theories have been confirmed. If Europeans feel they're being replaced, it's because they are also the only ones who defeated the Nazis were the Soviets, not the US. I don't even understand your position. Like, what are you saying, Maki? Like, who's replacing white people? When you say Europeans, say it with your chest. Are you saying white people are being replaced?
There's been murders, when there's been assaults. They have not stood up for a health service. They have not stood up for a water service. They are only silent because they're only raising their voice now because they've been whipped up to hate by the likes of Elon Musk, Nigel Farage and other agitators.
What happened during the week there?
Like, these people are so fucking, like, embarrassed by calling themselves white. They'll come here and they'll say, like, abstract things. When you ask them, are you white? They're so embarrassed to say that they're white, Just say it, bro. There are black and brown Europeans too. Who do you mean?
It's not indicative of Belfast and Northern Ireland as a whole. Those people are here, they're doing a great job. They're working in our hospitals, in our service industry, and they are more than welcome to be in Belfast.
The white replacement theory is conspiracy theory, is the biggest white fragility moment. They fucking, like, these white people fucking their ancestors have created so much, and their privilege relies on looting and continuing to exploit the world. And then they're the ones who think they're being replaced. It's so stupid, bro. These people are just the most fragile fucking people. No. Yeah, I won't, because you're just another white supremacist fucking fragile idiot. Stop spreading conspiracy theories, bro. Stop spreading conspiracy theories, dipshit.
Put the hand in the cup.
They're so fucking fragile. They're so fucking fragile. These little fucking Hitler-loving chuds. They're so fragile. All of this white supremacy, where the fuck did it go? Bro, I thought you were a supreme person. Here you are acting like a fucking victim. White supremacy. Oh. Time to rename it, maybe. What platform are they on? On Twitch. Thousands rally in Rome, Italy for rival pro and anti-migration marches. Thousands of police deployed to keep the rallies apart as far-right re-immigration shouldn't be proud about whiteness. Yeah, I mean, I think that goes unsaid. Should, but these people are obviously struggling to acknowledge their own history and the crimes that continue to be committed in the name of whiteness. Thousands of police deployed to keep the rallies apart as far-right re-immigration initiative gains traction. Tens of thousands of people have taken to the streets of the Italian capital for rival demonstrations over migration policy as a far-right proposal seeking hardline migration measures is set to advance to discuss in Parliament. An anti-migration march in Rome's Prati neighborhood on Saturday drew several thousand participants, while a competing pro-migration event in a separate part of the city attracted tens of thousands. I'm telling you, these idiots, these Nazis are going to destroy Europe. And they're going to do it one by one. They're going to do it bit by bit. And they're going to be told by these elites that this is what it's about. You know, you're being replaced, blah, blah, blah. They're going to tear down European power from the inside. You watch. It's the most stupid shit. They're so indoctrinated into believing that they have some fucking right to this planet that they're slowly going to start destroying themselves. It's the most hilarious shit. Thousands of police were also deployed to ensure the two rival groups would remain apart. The demonstrations come after a petition advocating for sweeping measures targeting foreigners, including coercive returns to their countries of origin. How are they being replaced? So the Great Replacement Theory goes like this. Conspiracy theory, I should say. If you guys don't know it, they're such dumbasses, honestly. Like, insanely stupid. Replacement theory in the United States and certain other Western countries whose populations are mostly white, a far-right conspiracy theory alleging in one of its versions that left-leaning domestic or international elites on their own initiative or under the direction of Jewish co-conspirators are attempting to replace white citizens with non-white, black, Hispanic, Asian, or Arab immigrants. The immigrants' increased presence in white countries, as the theory goes, in combination with their higher birth rates as compared with those of whites, will enable new non-white majorities in those countries to take control of national, political, and economic institutions to dilute or destroy their host countries' distinctive cultures and societies, and eventually to eliminate the host country's white populations. Some adherents of replacement theory have characterized these predicted changes as white genocide. Okay, so what this whole thing is projection. Okay, the thing they are most afraid of is thinking that what they've done to them and their ancestors and this doctrine of white supremacy ideology has done to the world is going to happen to them. They'll sit there and support the actual replacement happening in the world right now, which is in Palestine. There is a population in Palestine, an occupying force that wants to replace the population, and they'll support it. It's such idiocy. It is fear. It is projection. Because demographic replacement happened during European colonization. I can tell you in Aotearoa, they did it systematically to Maori. Systematically replacing Maori. It was a clear strategy to replace Maori. That's the fear. That's where it comes from. It comes from the fact that they cannot understand how the world is going to treat them when their power goes away. And it's fear. It comes from a fear of knowing what their ancestors did to the world. It's stupidity. The demonstrations came after a petition advocating for sweeping measures targeting foreigners, including coercive returns to their countries of origin. I remember a religious aspect of it, or maybe it's the right adding it in. Oh, they add in all sorts of stuff, guys. They add in all sorts of stuff. And this is why Trump's support base is never going to leave him. Okay? This is why Trump's support base is never, ever going to abandon him. The reason why is Trump represents the fight against this replacement. Okay? Donald Trump represents that to them. Because they truly believe they're being replaced. Right? And Donald Trump represents keeping white civilization alive. What do you think will happen when he's dead? They'll find a new person. They'll find J.D. Vance or whoever. Whoever will carry that cause. That's what Donald Trump represents to them. It's not... Donald Trump can, on live TV, do the worst shit and they won't care. Because they are... What Donald Trump represents to them is this fantasy of saving this, like, white race. That's what it's about. And that ideology is just going to pass from one person to the other. Donald Trump does it the best, but someone else will come. But that's why Donald Trump can change his mind like 3 million times. As long as he continues to play to that fragility within his base, Donald Trump will never, ever be seen as the bad guy by MAGA. Never, never. Because he constantly plays to that. What do you think will happen when he... Oh, you already answered that. You might not know, but some politicians are talking about re-immigration. They are advocating to send back non-white French citizens to their origin countries. Yeah, they'll do all of that. This is the moment, right? This is the moment. Their back's against the wall. Europe is losing power. This is when they'll do the worst shit. You'll see. It'll get worse. It'll get worse. ICE, you think ICE is bad? Wait, it'll get worse. But this is the moment, right? Once power starts to be challenged, the citizenry will turn to patriotism and nationalism, and this is when populism and just inward thinking starts to grow. This is a very fragile time for the West. I'm telling you right now, the West is in quite a fragile state. The demonstrations come after a petition advocating for sweeping measures targeting foreigners, including coercive returns to their countries of origin, gathered the 50,000 signatures needed to trigger parliamentary decisions. And it's so funny that these Anglo-Saxons, they're immigrants to fucking Britain too. They're just idiots. Named Re-Immigration and Reconquest, the petition has pushed the once fringe concept of re-immigration, which in far-right context can mean the mass deportation of ethnic minorities, into the political mainstream. Well, better start learning Wolof then. Trump's base do not allow themselves to think for themselves. He loves the uneducated. As long as they refuse to critically think and keep their eyes and ears closed, nothing will change. Republican Party base is white Protestants, Christian conservatives. They vote Republican every election. Yeah, and don't forget Christian Zionists, evangelicals. 60% of American Christians are evangelicals. We want to kick the illegal immigrants out, force them out, because they shouldn't be here. Luca Marcella, spokesperson for the neo-fascist group Casa Pound, said at the anti-migrant rally Saturday. The British king is of a German-descended royal house. Yeah, they're all hypocrites, bro. They're walking contradictions. All going to hell by their standards too. Yeah. And since we're not politically correct, we'll say we want to send the legal immigrants home too. The ones who clearly haven't assimilated or integrated. It's so funny, like, in Aotearoa, people will say, people will bring up the assimilation and integration bullshit. It's like, bro, the only people who haven't assimilated in Aotearoa are the fucking white supremacists. Because they don't respect the indigenous population. You know, they don't respect Te Tiriti o Waitangi. They don't respect equity for Maori. They don't do any of that. So who hasn't assimilated here? It's the fucking white supremacists who haven't assimilated. This is why, guys. This is why in countries where the native population, the indigenous population has been displaced and their land taken, it's so important to empower the indigenous population. Not empower, but at least amplify the indigenous voices. Because ultimately, assimilation is such a stupid concept when the host country, when the country is mass oppressing the indigenous population. By illegal immigrants, they mean settler colonialists, right? No, by illegal immigrants. Oh, yeah. Guys, Kappa. Use the Kappa. Sounds proctologist. All going to hell by their standards. JD won't get in. JD won't get in. The racists do not like the color of his wife's skin, no matter how much she tries. Rum, you'll be surprised how flexible racists are. You know the leader of the AFD party, that lady? She is a lesbian, and her lesbian wife, is a Sri Lankan lady, I think. Like dark skin. Racists are very flexible when you talk about their agenda. The interesting part, though, is that even though 35% support Trump now, each election produces another variation of imperialist racist leaders to continue their ideologies. And yet the people of America continue to say for centuries, it's not us, it's the government, which is a complete fucking cop-out. Yeah, the people are the government and a projection of what they want. 100%, man. 100 next to the moon. Oh, Americans who keep saying like, oh, it's not my fault, it's the government's fault, are just hate accountability, hate it. Yeah. I mean, I read that passage from Black Skin, White Masks. And to me, that's all you need. May God forgive me. I'm an atheist. May God forgive you for the words that you say that is not true. Most Americans are powerless. Oh, come on, man. I'm so sick of fucking Americans saying, oh, most of them are powerless. And then they'll tell you to vote for fucking Kamala. Like, you deserve what you get, I guess. And since we're not politically correct, we'll say, oh, yeah, I read that. On several occasions during the anti-migrant march, any participants raised their arms in a fascist salute, shouting "Duce, Duce" in reference to Italian dictator Benito Mussolini, reported the Associated Press. And you deserve what you'll get? Okay. Now, don't mute that person. Don't mute them. I want to see that anger. Don't mute them. Let them say what they want to say. Incompatible with Italian constitution, the debate on migration represents a delicate balancing act for Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. In the debate on migration represents a delicate balancing act for Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's right-wing coalition. While the Anti-Migration League party that is in her coalition backs opening discussion on the petition, hey Tracy, welcome, Meloni's brothers of Italy and centrist allies have been more cautious about endorsing a proposal linked to extremist circles. Critics, including opposition parties and legal experts, argue the proposal would violate constitutional and international anti-discrimination principles by targeting people based on ethnic background, including naturalized citizens and their descendants. A lot of U.S. soldiers have foreign wives. Yeah, of course they do. A lot of U.S. soldiers also, on their bases, rape women and have children with them and don't take their children home. The so-called re-immigration bill. Hey, Arya. The so-called re-immigration bill invokes a logic of exclusion based on ethnic and cultural background that is incompatible with the Italian constitution and the fundamental principle of the rule of law, said left-wing politician Angelo Bonelli, according to Italy's La Repubblica newspaper. The controversy comes even as Meloni's government pursues a parallel policy of expanding legal migration, having approved a multi-year plan to admit hundreds of thousands of non-EU workers to address labor shortages in key economic sectors. Yeah, this is why it's such a stupid policy to send black and brown people back home, because white people are not going to do the labor that these people do, okay? They have shortages. The day I see these racist white supremacists picking fucking avocados, that's going to be such a beautiful day. Take pictures, everybody. White supremacists picking avocados. Let's go. Let's make it happen. Idiots, bro. Fucking stupid. Oh, this is a fun story, everybody. This is a fun story. MAGA male supremacist ambassador appointed to woo tourists back to the U.S. The number of international travelers to the U.S. has fallen, running counter to the global trend. Nick Adams, an ultra-conservative men's rights advocate and staunch supporter of the American president, has been entrusted with a mission to bring tourists back to the country. Men's rights? What a fucking douchebag, bro. This guy has been, what do you call it? Has been tanning his balls, I reckon, in that Tucker Carlson ball tanning machine. Hold on. I want to show you the ball tanning machine. Oh, what? No. What is it called? Hold on. Let me just put it here. Testicle tanning? Ah, yes. Here we go. Tucker Carlson's. There we go. Oh, beautiful. Look at that. Look at that. Oh, they're doing so much dumb shit, bro. Look at this idiot. Oh. Ball maxing for the win. Yeah. Oh my god. What is that? It's ball tanning. It's testicle. It's to increase your testosterone. Apparently, these right wing chuds are starting to tan their nuts. These guys will do fucking anything, man. Oh my gosh. Yeah, they'll just end up getting like testicular cancer or something. Yeah, exactly, Akudemo. Yeah. Giving skin cancer to their balls. Fucking idiots, eh? Oh my god. What did I join? Welcome, Trey. Welcome. You joined at exactly the right time. What should you bring back from a trip to the US? Nick Adams has an idea. Cowboy boots. The color of cognac are made from Nile crocodile skin, custom fitted by a boot maker in Fort Worth, Texas. These are the Bentleys of boots. A lot of people want them. All the oil billionaires, tourists, everyone commented this affordable Donald Trump emissary appointed in March 2026 as special representative for tourism, American exceptionalism, and its values. What is this? While traveling in Europe, the 41-year-old American met with journalists in Paris, London, Berlin, and Dublin with one goal: to restore the United States' image as a tourist destination. Oh my gosh. You've got a white supremacist going and selling like... In this respect, the U.S. has been going through a rough patch. While international tourist arrivals have surged worldwide, plus 4% in 2025, according to UN Tourism, the U.S. has gone in the opposite direction. In 2025, the number of international visitors, 68.3 million, dropped by 6%, according to figures from the U.S. Department of Commerce. Compared to 2019, the decrease was as much as 14%. Kia ora, Fix Today. Kia ora. The economic impact was significant. In 2025 alone, travelers spent $8 billion less in the U.S. economy, according to the World Travel and Tourism Council, which represents the world's largest travel companies. America's share of the global long-haul travel market is shrinking. New York's Brooklyn Bridge or
Intifada.
This is what I mean by Donny Boy has fucked up American imperialism, because the American brand is in the bin, bro. In the bin. From the lounges of the Four Seasons Hotel in Paris, Adams had no trouble taking on the role of brand ambassador for America, the adopted country of this Australian who became a U.S. citizen in 2021. He's Aussie. I shouldn't even say Aussie. He's European. You could do anything you want in the United States. Deserts, coastlines, small towns, big cities, jazz clubs, Redwood National Park, everything. And the level of service, he said, is excellent. I eat rare steaks. But while he has been tasked with winning back tourists, Adams is hardly a consensus figure. An essayist and political commentator, this loyal supporter of Trump is one of the leading faces of MAGA culture in its most hardline form. I eat rare steaks. I lift extremely heavy weights. I read the Bible every night. I have the physique of a Greek god. My IQ is over 180. I am extremely charismatic. They hate this, he wrote, for example, in a post on X. Oh my gosh, bro. When asked about his family, he replied that he was single. No shit. Who the fuck would want to spend any of their waking hours with this idiot? Oh my gosh. America, who are you sending? Who are you sending to rehabilitate your brand? This is the worst shit, bro. What the fuck? Oh, what a joke. It was put to me in London that I might be the most eligible bachelor in America. I told him that I had no comment, he quipped. His brand of masculinity is so over the top, so uncanny, that it almost seems like performance art, described an astonished Washington Post reporter in a profile. Wow. Hey, did my connection die or something to Twitch? Twitch, can you guys still hear me? Did my connection go down on Twitch or something? Oh, I had a drop? Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, I saw. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened there. Okay, we're back. I'm the first ever minister for tourism in the United States, and that's why things are going to change. Yeah, they are. Yep, they're definitely going to change, folks. You got CIA'd? Yeah. They're definitely going to change, aren't they? Assured this son of a Greek father and German mother, ticking off a list of events likely to attract visitors: the FIFA World Cup, the Los Angeles Olympics, and the Rugby World Cup. New investments from European companies will also help drive the sector. He explained, I'm in touch with airlines about adding routes. I'm in touch with hotels about breaking ground. I'm in touch with cruise lines that are considering home porting ships. He also hopes to develop luxury trains in the U.S., such as the Belmond Orient Express, part of the LVMH group. Oh my gosh. When Nazis start talking about trains, I get nervous. Migration policy has sent a different signal, however, not exactly inviting to travelers. In December 2025, that was Kappa, by the way. Well, no, it's not Kappa. It's serious. I actually get nervous, actually. In December 2025, the U.S. Federal Register announced a proposal to reform the ESTA, Electronic System for Travel Authorization, the crucial travel document French tourists must obtain to visit the U.S. Scary. Just before I continue, we have spoken about Faye, and a lot of people, a few people have put some cash in our account. I have also done that. Can you please check with Faye? If everything's okay? And we'd love an update on where Faye is at. If that's cool, Scary. How are you, by the way? Albert Einstein never actually took an IQ test, so his exact IQ is unknown. However, biographers, historians, and scientists widely estimate his score to be around 160. Okay, firstly, the IQ test is just eugenics. Don't look at the IQ test at all. The IQ test is an absolute scam. Don't play into the eugenics bullshit. The IQ test doesn't prove anything. People learn in different ways. People absorb information in different ways. It's a stupid test. It's a stupid test. Made to measure some stupid shit. Yeah, invented by a Nazi, yes. Among the new information required. Oh, French word for bullshit. Among the new information required, a list of social media accounts, email addresses, and phone numbers used in the past 5 years submitted for public comment. This reform has yet to be adopted, but it has created anxiety among travelers. Adam's mission is to diffuse these concerns. This idea that you are going to travel to America, that you are going to be detained, and that you're going to have your phone confiscated from you, that your social media is going to be poured over, and then you are going to be sent back is absolute and total nonsense. What's the French word for bullshit? Still, while ESTA issuance procedures have not changed, its cost has doubled. Last October, it rose from $21 to $40 per traveler. Any brown and black people want to take that risk? Fuck that, bro. I don't want to touch the soil in that country. It is symbolic because beyond the image of Trump, the main obstacle facing the U.S. tourism sector is the cost of traveling in the country. For me, it's the key factor explaining the decline in trips to the U.S. Extremely high prices for lodging, dining, and park entry. When even a basic meal costs $40 per person, people think twice, said Patrice Karadec, president of the Union of Tour Operating Companies, which brings together French tourism professionals. Okay, it could be that. Yes, the cost, absolutely. It could be the cost. It could also be the raging fascism in that country. The fact that ICE is going around and beating the shit out of people and shooting people could also be an issue. You know? For this summer, SETO members are reporting a 39% drop in trips to the US. I don't think it's the price yet. In total, over the past 2 years, about half of their American-bound clientele has vanished, estimated Karadec. The war in the Middle East has accelerated this trend. Among almost all long-haul destinations are affected. Well, great. You know, your actions have consequences. Hey, Joy, welcome. Yeah, look, man, I just think the U.S. is having this problem. And it is the fact that it's having this problem is it should have happened a long time ago because the U.S. has been doing this sort of shit. Like Iraq and Iran didn't stop, you know, people going to America and having vacations. Vietnam, for all of those people killed, the American economy kept growing. Okay? This is what I mean by Iran is the largest military fuck up in military history, in my honest opinion, because this has stifled growth because of so many different reasons. The American brand is in the worst shape it has ever been in. America's control of global energy is in the worst shape it's been in since like post World War II. America's deindustrialization is humongous. They can't produce like they used to. I think this war is kind of the start of the end of America's imperialist machine. I think we are moving towards a more equitable world for all, but it is going to be violent. It is going to be violent, and capitalism is going to learn that enriching just a few people on the top is not the best way to build a world that is thriving. And I just hope what Trump is doing fucks up American imperialism a lot more. White people don't lose without burning everything first. Honestly, that's my biggest concern. Is white supremacy. White supremacy goes, if we can't have the world, then you can't either. Which would suck. But anyway, let's be optimistic about the world, about the future. Anywho, everybody. I will say thank you very much for joining me today. Can we please figure out who we're gonna raid? Let's look after somebody. Oh, thank you. Trisk Lakid. Thank you so much. They'll replace him by a new one. Yeah, let's do Zach Chat. Thank you, Andy. Guys, we're trying to get Zach Chat. Has Zach Chat got his partner yet? Is he partner yet? Zach Chap needs to be partner, everybody. If he's not partner, he needs to be partner. Help him out. Do what you can. Stay, watch, help Zach Chap out. He's a great lad. He's an amazing Aussie lad. And, help him out. The guy puts in so much work. He's a great bloke. Look after him. He's an absolute gem. And the leftist community is just so lucky to have him. Look after the guy. He's awesome. All right, folks. Raiders, let's go. You ready? In 3, 2, 1. Thank you so much for being here with me, Twitch, and everybody. I'll catch you all soon, okay? Kakite. And enjoy the raid. Pomarie, Darlene. TikTok, YouTube, thank you so much, everybody. TikTok, YouTube, thank you so much. I'll catch you all soon. Thank you for being here. And Kakite, Pomarie, I will catch you all very soon. Good night, folks. Free Palestine. And YouTube. I'll catch you later. Twitch, if there's anyone in the chat still, I'll catch you all soon.